Every day is
All right, we are live. Welcome. This is Orion Rising. I am your host, Leonard O'Neill. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good morrow, depending on where in the world you are tuning into this show. Share this out, share this out, share this out. All right, welcome. It's the Law of One. Check it out. It's Friday. Friday for me, anyway. Some of you, it's Saturday, depending on where in the world you are. Okay, so we're going to get into the Law of One, but before I do that, I wanted to announce that tomorrow, for those of you around the world, it may not be Saturday, it might be Sunday for you. Saturday, 12 p.m. noon, West Coast America time. That is GMT -7, UK -8. So 8 p.m. in the UK. So depending on where in the world you are, you can figure that out. If you're in Australia, it's morning for you over there because you're like 15 or 16 or 17 hours ahead of us. So it'll be Sunday morning if you're in Australia because you're that much far ahead of us. Not quite 24 hours, but so it might even be night. I haven't done the math in my head, so I apologize for that. Denise, welcome. So Saturday, tomorrow at 12 noon West Coast America time, like I said, GMT -7, UK -8. We will be live. I will be live on Jacqueline Taylor's show, Oneness Project Light, on YouTube and on Facebook. We will be live on there, and there's going to be at least 4 or 5 of us. There might be more that are going to be on speaking. We're going to be doing a roundtable of magic users, psychics, people that are awake, and we're going to be talking about a lot of different things. Involving all of us and what we all go through and the things that we do to prepare, the price that we pay for everything that we do. And so we're going to be talking about a lot of that. So we're going to have people from 4 different continents on there, at least 3 different continents. We're going to have from 4 different countries, 4 continents: UK, South Africa, North America, and where else? Canada, America. So there's 2 countries there: the UK, Ireland, South Africa. So there's going to be just at least that, and then other people that might be from Australia. It might be 1 or 2 people from Australia showing up. So there's going to be people from around the world that are going to be on there tomorrow that are going to be talking. Most of us are in a coalition together with the Orion Coalition of Light. That are going to be talking tomorrow about this stuff. So you might want to tune in on Jacqueline Taylor's show. Like I said, we'll share it into normal places where I'm live. So if you're listening, and those of you listening around the world on the MP3 broadcast, I will get the recording of that and broadcast it on Orion Rising for you guys to listen to the MP3 broadcast of that program after the show's over. So I will be able to download that. I'll get it from Jacqueline, and we'll put that on the air for you guys to be able to hear. And that will be titled Oneness Project Light on my podcast. So you'll see that it won't be entitled Orion Rising, although you'll go to Orion Rising where you normally listen to my show, but then you'll see where it'll say Oneness Project Light, and then special guests, and then or the description of what we'll be doing. Okay, so I wanted to give that commercial. I'll do it again as the show goes on, and then at the end of the show, I'll give another commercial for those of you listening. So look for that on YouTube, Oneness Project Light, Jacqueline Taylor, is the host and owner and producer of that podcast. We'll also be on Facebook at the same. If not, we'll be on what is it, Izzy Kelly? I think we'll be broadcasting on Izzy Kelly's channel on Facebook, and it's going to be done in Zoom platform. That's what we use for that. So some of you will be able to tune into the chat there live if you want and talk to us in the chat live and ask questions of all of us. We love Q&A. All of us that are going to be on there love Q&A. Cassie, welcome. Pamela, welcome. If you don't say hi, I just see numbers and I don't know who else here. Okay, so like I said, share this out. I haven't shared it out. Over the years, I've shared less because when I do, there are certain people who are haters. And when I share, they report me as spam, and I keep getting put into prison, so I can't post anything. So I stopped doing that, and I rely on you guys to share it out because they're reluctant. Most people won't because you're not one of the producers of the show, and they don't hate on you. They don't know who you are, so they don't report that as spam because I don't want to get you into trouble because they've always tried to get me into trouble. A lot of us have that. We were talking about that in a couple of the chats today, and I've been talking about that oddly with a bunch of people, that topic of people hating, and some of the people always have reservations of posting or saying comments because they're afraid to have people yell at them and demean them and out them and try to erase them or silence them by using their voice against them. And I wanted to bring that up because I tell people, and most of us teach people this truly. And I use Taylor Swift as an example because one of her very, very popular songs, she's the chorus of the songs is "Haters gonna hate, hate, hate." She wrote that song because of that. And she also gave a speech when she was winning an award about people trying to take credit for your stuff or stifle your voice or control you in this world. And that is the modus operandi, part of the modus operandi by evil people. Rick, welcome. By evil people, that they try to go after you and stifle you by attacking you. And so we tell people that you don't know that you've made it. The only way you know you've made it is when you have haters. If you get death threats, you know you're saying the right things. You know the whatever it is that you're trying to put out there. When most of the people don't say negative stuff, pardon my American, and then all of a sudden people start saying, "Who do you think you are? You're an idiot. You don't know what you're talking about," or "I'm going to come kill you," and whatever that is, they threaten you. That's how you know you're actually doing the right thing. When you get trolls chasing you around or people threatening you, that means that the message that you're sounding off is triggering people in a way that they don't like. And so therefore they're trying to shame you into silence. So just know that when that happens to you, have the courage to laugh at that. I laugh. The more negative, there's a theory out there, and a lot of you guys don't know about this, but Vince McMahon, the owner of World Wrestling Entertainment, a global empire, his father owned that, and it wasn't called that at the time. It was called something else. And it was actually called the WWF, but they had to change that because it was the World Wrestling Federation, and they called it the WWF. And there is the World Wildlife Foundation, who uses the symbol WWF, and they sued Vince McMahon about 20 or 30 years ago, and he changed it to WWE. But his father owned Worldwide Wrestling, and he grew up in wrestling, and he bought it from his father when he was a young man. And he had a more of a business savvy because he watched his father, and then he learned business. And then he, went to school and learned business and watched his father and learned everything from his father and then furthered that. And he applies this knowledge that a lot of very successful people in the world learn and apply to their lives, but they don't talk about it so much to everybody in the world. Some try to, but some people just don't really pay attention. And that message is this: if people hate you, they're talking about you and thinking about you. If people love you, they're talking about you and hating you and thinking about you. So whether you're popular because they hate you or you're popular because they love you, in fact, you want to have that controversy of people loving and hating you at the same time, because then everyone is talking about you. Okay, so in that industry, they have two kinds of personalities in that wrestling industry. One is called face, and the face character is the one that everybody loves, who's the good guy, the hero, the Captain America kind of a personality persona. And then you have the other thug, which is the other one, which everybody hates, and that's the villain character. So you are one or the other, and each person that they have sometimes is that villain and sometimes is the face character, depending on how the people see them at the time or where they need. And Vince McMahon traditionally has this persona of himself that he uses only when there is nobody who is that thug character, that villain that everyone hates on. So the people that they have as bad guys aren't generating as much hate and discussion, and people aren't spending a lot of time hating and booing that person. So he would come out as Vince McMahon, the arrogant, egotistical owner of the company with "you're fired" and all that stuff. And he'd come out with this walk that was, he was walking with his testicles forward and with this big strut, and he'd come down to the ring and he would do all that, and everybody would hate him and hate him and hate him and hate him. And then he would, when they found somebody that they could prop into that position, he would then disappear and not have to come down to the shows and stir up that hornet's nest in that way. He understood and does understand, and has passed this on to his daughter and his son, who are running the multi-companies around the world today, that they're doing the same thing. They understood how this dynamic works in the minds of people, and that when you have people hating on you, you're just as popular. If people ignore you, he said, he teaches this to the people who work for him as wrestlers in the entertainment business, or speakers on the show, or whatever, referees, whatever. If people love you or hate you, they're talking about you and you are popular. If they ignore you, you need to change something about yourself, because if you stay ignored, I'll fire you. And because we're about entertainment and bringing that entertainment. They've used that same ideology in some ways that you don't know about in mixed martial arts in the UFC. That same dynamic they use, and they teach the people who fight for them that this is about entertainment. You need to entertain the crowd when you're out there, so you can't be boring. You have to be loved or hated, and you have to be doing things that the crowd wants to see. That's why they don't have, like they do in kickboxing and other sports that are the same type of sport, where they don't have you do grappling, and they have a requirement for amount of punches and amount of kicks that you have to throw. A lot of you who've never been in martial arts, you don't know that. And so they don't do that. And that's why in boxing, you can't clinch. So in boxing, they just want you to stand there and beat on each other like Rock'em Sock'em Robots. That's why that game was created back in the 60s or whenever it was before I was born, when it was created, because they just want you to stand there and punch on each other. And that's it. That's all you can do. You can't kick, you can't bite, you can't scratch, you can't gouge, you can't tackle the guy, you can't tie him up, you can't, so mixed martial arts is all of that combined. Why? Because they're going for a more entertainment value. And you will hear sometimes when people are fighting, they end up grappling on the ground, which is the way real fighting actually goes in real life. If you've ever been in a real fight, standing up, doing that Hollywood combat with all those fake moves from Hollywood only happens in Hollywood. The truth is, all fights in real life end up on the ground unless they end in the first 30 seconds. Okay, that is the truth of how fighting actually happens. And then you end up rolling around on the ground. There's a chess match going on. So anyone who actually knows how to really fight in real life, that is the type of fight that is real and more real. And that's why wrestling, Greco-Roman wrestling, was a sport that is in the Olympics. Why is that? Because that is actually what real fighting ends up being. You end up scrapping on the ground for your life, fighting another person who's trying to choke you out, murder you, kill you, and you're trying to do the same. So it's rare. The Hollywood has gotten everybody to believe that everybody stands up and Rock'em Sock'em Robot. Okay, so that is the truth of that. Why is all of that important? Okay, going back to my point, is literally people need to do something, and with the society, the way that it is structured, which is part of the Anunnaki civilization that they brought here. I use that term with finger quotes, by the way, Anunnaki, because as you know, that word doesn't actually exist anywhere on this earth except for in the minds of people who wrongfully translated that scroll. There is no word that is Anunnaki in that Mesopotamian scroll at all. It's actually Anunnaki, 2 words. And it doesn't mean those from the heavens came to earth. It means the prince, the royalty came to town and taught us this stuff. Doesn't mean anything about somebody off-world at all. And you can look that up. I've shown scholars who actually have translated and found the dictionaries of that language, because we did find those. Okay, the dictionaries of those languages that tells you the meaning of everything. There is no word that is Anunnaki that means a god Anu. That whole word Anu comes from the Akkadian people next door. Okay, so those people, when they got here, that group of ideology, which goes back to the Atlanteans and in truth, not the Mesopotamians, but the Atlanteans and the Luciferians. When Lucifer got here, Lucifer wasn't an evil god. Lucifer was an actual physical being who came here from outer space. So it wasn't Anu, though, by the way. It wasn't even known as Anu, that person who was Lucifer. But most people don't know about this because this is the information that's kept that only the rich and the elite who are Luciferians tell you. And why is that? It's in my book, and I talk about it in my book. It has to do with all the obelisks that have been removed from Egypt and put in the capital cities of places like Germany, France, England, America, a few other places around the world where they have these big giant obelisks. They actually came from Egypt. And I give you a list in my book. When that comes out, either in December or January of this year, you'll see that, and I'll talk about it more then. So why is all this important? Okay. Those people, and part of what they were doing in this society, that scrolls that they had, were the building blocks of the human condition that we have today, where they teach how to build these empires and control the masses. Part of that control over the masses is to brainwash people into camps. They brainwash you in every way they can to separate you into camps of opposition, so that you always look at everybody as if they're either for you or against you. They're either your friend or they're your enemy. And you have that mindset about everything, whether it's race, whether it's creed, whether it's religion, whether it's politics, whether it's whatever, it doesn't matter. All of it is always about opposition and setting you into in your mindset, in your mind, that you have to have an opposing side always. That's what they do with the children. They get you convinced that. So because of that, when someone speaks, they're now saying that should be an opposing view. They're either you are exactly agree with them, or they are your enemy, and you have to be hostile towards them and hate them. And that is what they part of what they were teaching and corrupting in this society. And they have been. It's not new. It's not something everyone's like, they just started doing this a few years ago. This has been the way it's been for thousands of years. You're just now aware of it. So it's the same thing when people say, oh, those politicians are they're blatantly lying now. They're not even trying to hide it. They've never been trying to hide it. I am 56 years of age, and I have been aware of that, what you just are seeing now, since I was able to understand it. My father was teaching it to me when I was like 5 and 6. Literally at that time, Vietnam was happening, and I was watching the news, and my father was explaining to me the reality of what was happening on the news. And they're not just, he wasn't explaining to me like the politics and we're the good guys and they're the bad guys. My father actually said to me, my first introduction to Vietnam was, this is how you lose a war. What you're seeing right here is America is going to lose this war against these people. And I asked him, well, what that meant. And he actually was telling me that. And the man that I saw on the television screen that day was explaining that very thing. And his name was, at the time, he was a lieutenant or a captain. He was captain. And his name was, oh God, I can't think of his name. I just thought David Hackworth. He eventually became Lieutenant Colonel David Hackworth in the United States Marine Corps. And literally, my father was telling me, this is how you lose. I met that man when I was 24 years old, by the way, and had him sign his book that he wrote. He was the most decorated soldier to this day, the most decorated living soldier in American history in the United States. More decorations than George Washington or any other person in the history of the United States military. And our government tried to murder him, put a price on his head, and hunted him and tried to kill him. and he was exiled in Australia. And our government said, as long as he stays in Australia and never comes to the rest of the world and tells them what's going on, then we won't try to kill him. So he wrote a book that was over 1,000 pages long called About Face, and he published it. And once he did, the words that he wanted to say got out there to the world, and they couldn't just murder him over it. And he was able to come back to the United States, and I met him after that happened. Okay, and you should look into him and why that is. Now, the reason I tell you that is because my father was teaching me at a very young age that what this man was saying was actually true, and that what was really happening was that only the rich and the elite were gaining from this Vietnam War, and that it had nothing to do with politics, and that politics was involved in it, but he never told me that it was religion. I had to discover that later on, that politics isn't what you think it is, and that none of those people are actually your friends, and you should look into politics without the eyes of opposing sides. So as I grew up and I started doing that with everything, I started realizing that that is a necessity for them to continue not allowing you to know what is going on and what they are doing, because you're so busy fighting over everything. Anything anyone says to you, anything they're wearing, anything that they're looking at, the music they're listening to, the color of their skin, the words coming out of their mouth, the very smell they have, it doesn't matter what it is, you're looking for something to fight against them with. And so because of that, no matter what I say, whenever I speak, like right now, anybody who's listening to me, if you associate in any way with your ego, with politics, that is your ego, by the way. That is ego. It only applies to your ego. In fact, your ego will jump on politics and that whole ideology in a half second, because that's what your ego is exactly like that. So they will literally suck you in, and you immediately, if you're out there listening to me, if you're a conservative, you hate me and think I'm a progressive. If you're a progressive, you hate me and think I'm a conservative, because you are designed to do that. Okay. So you're designed to do that by their ideology. To no matter what, you're trying to find the enemy. You're not even trying to listen to anyone. You're trying to wait for them to say something to you that you know you're going to be against. You just can't wait for them to do it. So you're not even hearing words until you're hearing fighting words. And that is the programming that they have in your head. So whenever you're trying to speak like I'm doing now, you have to be aware that you're going to get haters the second you start speaking truth, because they don't want the truth. And I'm not saying everyone out there doesn't want the truth, because everyone out there, you guys want the truth, but the establishment doesn't want the truth. They have to stifle the truth. Do you see? So literally, yeah, right. Cassie's like, Leo and I hadn't talked for weeks. Then we talked for like 5 or 6 hours to catch up. Yeah, we did. Not a joke. Cassie said that just now in the chat for those of you listening on the MP3 broadcast. We actually did. We ended up talking for almost 6 hours the other day, because we hadn't talked for almost a month, right? It was a few weeks. We hadn't actually spoke. It was at least a week and a half, 2 weeks. And then we talked for like 6 hours. Okay. So I do that. I do that with Jacqueline too, and we laugh about it. There's some of us, there's a certain group of us that when we actually do start talking to each other, that's not a 10-minute conversation. We end up talking for a long time. We're not going to do that tomorrow, mind you. We're going to be on there for like an hour to start with. I don't know how long we're going to go, but Jacqueline usually tries to keep her show an hour. We might end up going 2. It's not going to be like my show where I talk for 3 hours, or if you're talking to me in person and I talk to you. Because some of you, I talk to you and I talk to you for like 30 seconds, a minute, 5 minutes, and I'm gone, right? Well, there's a few of us that are very high vibration where when we get together, we talk for hours about things. And we cover a lot of things that we don't talk about on the air, because some of it we can't. And we were joking about that and laughing about that, Cassie and I, and laughing about Jacqueline and I do the same thing. We're just like, we can't say this to the world. They're not ready for it yet. And it's not like we're choosing this. So I want you guys to know that when we do this, and if you're a true medium, you know this, and you won't hear a lot of mediums say this out loud because they're kind of afraid to, because of the way people treat you when they're adversarial and trying to find an adversarial moment. When you're trying to do a reading on somebody, because I am a medium as well, I just don't talk about it very often to people, but people who know me know that I've always done this my entire life. I've worked with police departments around the world and actually helped them solve cases, but not just that, but other people as well, doing things. So literally, that what happens is when you're talking to somebody, there are certain things that an individual can't know ahead of time, not because You think they don't need to know it, but because their higher self has set that down for them to learn on their own, it's something they're trying to work on themselves. So you can't tell them the answer to it because it's actually forbidden. Okay, so there is prime directives. And then when I'm talking to you guys now, I can only reveal what the average world listener out there who could possibly find my show is capable of knowing. To some of you, what I'm saying is way out of your zone and you have no idea what I'm saying, and I sound crazy to you. To some of you, what I'm saying is so simple that you think, why is this guy talking about this? Only children would not know that. Okay, so that's the spectrum that is out there, but there's an average, and the entire populace can only know what their average amount is ready for, and just above that where I can stretch, pull things. Individually, I can say far more to the individual because I can pull them out of their comfort zone into a place where they go, you've lost me and now I'm out. I have no idea what you're saying. And I can pull them there. But for the entire species, I can only pull you so far. So some of you, I'm pulling way out of your comfort zone when I talk. Some of you, I'm talking to a place where you have no idea what I'm saying. And for some of you, literally, I'm saying things that you think is so simple that I don't know why a 4-year-old doesn't know it, because they should. Okay. So the spectrum is out there, but there's certain things that we can't say. So it's not like we make up, we can't tell them this and we're all secretly hiding something from you. It's that you are not ready for it en masse on this planet. So we can't say it. This is true. There is a prime directive. And when we push to that limit, it literally, our brain is thinking the words we want to say and our mouth won't say it. The universe itself will stop this body from saying the words. And if I push forward and say, I'm going to say it anyways, the thought is removed from my mind. I cannot conjure the thought to tell you. I know that I can't conjure the thought. So it's not like I forget it and forget that I was saying it. And oh, where was I? I lost my train of thought. That's not what happens. I know that I was going to tell you something and I knew it a second ago and now I don't know it. And when I actually say, I am not going to say this, I refuse to say this, and I'm not going to try again, then after a few seconds, sometimes 20 or 30 seconds, all of a sudden I have the memory of what I was going to say back in my head again. So I get to have the knowledge again. But the second I try to force it again, it will disappear. And that is what happens from the universe itself, from my higher self, your higher selves, the universe itself. There is a prime directive. And some of us try to push that envelope. And I remember Jacqueline just said to me recently, when we first met, it was about 8 years ago now, when we first met in this life, that we were in a chat together, a small group of us together in a chat. And I was talking and saying things that she got excited and was like, oh my God, we can say this stuff out loud, because she was thinking it, but afraid to say it because she didn't know what she could get away with and what she could say. And she hasn't stopped since, because she was like, oh, we can do this. Then I'm going to go and see how far I can. And she's learned the same things that I've learned in anyone else's that it is awake, that there is just so far you can go with either certain people or the mass group. And when you're talking on a platform like I'm doing, getting this out to the world, I can only tell you what the average amount of people just above that to pull them out of their zone. I can give you a little bit and push you out of your comfort zone, but I can't. There's some things that I would love to say that I've waited 30 and 40 years to be able to say, because I couldn't say them 30 years ago. I couldn't say them 20 years ago. There's a lot of things I'm saying today that I couldn't say 10 years ago. Okay, because no one was ready for it. Literally, Drumvalo Melchizedek in 2012 was trying to say something on camera, and he stopped a few times and was talking to his guides and said, oh, I can't tell you that because certain things have to happen before I can give you that knowledge. So there's some people out there who are willing to say those things out loud and be honest. And a lot of your mediums won't say that because they're afraid that that diminishes their ability in some people's minds. So they won't say, I can't say that. So it's refreshing when I see a medium who says, wait a minute, I want to make sure I'm not making this up, or hold on a second, I can't tell you that because it's something you need to go through on your own, because that's what, and I was doing that with people that are fully awake now. And they, when I was working with them, and they were like, "Why can't you tell me this? I know you know the answer to this." And I'm like, "Because you're not ready for it yet. I can't. There's something you have to go through on your own to get here. So I can't tell you this. And it's not me that's deciding this. I'm not holding back on purpose. I'm holding back because I can't tell you, because your higher self is forbidding me from telling you this, because it's something you're supposed to learn on your own." Okay, so literally, you have to realize that. So the modus operandi, to get on point, and then we're going to start with Ra. The modus operandi is to get you into a place where you're adversarial, and they've done that. The greatest trick the devil ever pulled, you know, the statement. The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was getting us not to realize or to believe that he didn't exist. Well, if that's the case, how come we know that? If that's the true case and the greatest trick the devil ever pulled, how do we know that to be able to tell you the greatest trick the devil ever pulled is getting us to believe he didn't exist? Because we know he exists, because we know his name, and we know that that was the greatest trick he ever pulled. So it didn't work. So that's not the greatest trick the devil ever pulled. The greatest trick the devil ever pulled is the one that you don't know about. And that is politics and all of that, business, politics, government, all of that. And that control and all of that is, that nature, that thing is the religion of evil. That is the greatest trick the devil ever pulled, was getting you to believe that Satanism is the religion of evil. There are currently only 2 million people worldwide who call themselves Satanists. There are more than 10 million people worldwide, it's actually higher than that, but officially, who say they're Luciferians. Okay? And all of them own everything on the earth. And all of them have 98% of the world's wealth. Okay? Why is that? How is that? I explained that in my book, and I just explained it to you. Okay? So when you get people hating on you because you're speaking, it doesn't matter what you're saying. You're going to get someone hating on you because everyone is trying to see you as an adversary in every aspect of everything. No one, except for people who are on the path of spirituality, are in any way trying to do anything other than that. And they are not aware of it. It's not their fault. Hence the reason that Jesus on the cross, if you're Christian, said, "God, please, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." Because literally, you don't realize it. You've been brainwashed since birth to literally take a side in everything. All the sports are there to have you pick a side. You have to fervently root for your team, home team. We're the best. Kill them all. And that's training for warfare, and that's training for country, God and country, king and country. And all of that is so that you follow the king blindly like good little automaton slaves, and you go out there as fodder, human wave after human wave, and kill the other human wave after human wave. And it was illegal up until less than 75 years ago. It was illegal to kill the rich and the elite, the officers in the fucking militaries. So they would go out there and you go get them, men, and you would go out there and kill each other and murder each other. And the people who were in charge and owned the world never got hurt unless there was an accident. You can look that up. That is the way it has been. And it hasn't been that way forever, because it used to be where kings would go and fight in combat. But they stopped doing that because the kings would go out and fight in combat and die at 25 years of age. So then they started saying, we can't have the king go out there and do that. We got to protect him and let everybody else do the fighting. And who was it that came up with that? The evil people who they were cowards and they don't want to die. So they're like, send everybody else. And that's why there's different songs out there and different things out there, one of which by System of a Down, where their song BYOB, Bring Your Own Bombs. If you listen to that song, one of the choruses they scream is, why do they always send the poor? When they go to war, why do they always send the poor? Because they don't send the rich, because they're the ones that they want to keep around to keep everything flowing up to them. So they're not doing this because they're trying to win a war against some evil king. Usually it's their cousin. They're doing it to thin out the herd and sometimes take out their cousin as well. Because they're evil. Evil people can only work with one another for a certain length of time before they start stabbing each other in the back. You have to know that. That's their religion. You have to realize that. Okay, now let's get back to Raw. We were talking about last week that, and I backed up a few questions because of that in the session we're on, session 11, I think, or session 26, question 11. I believe it's 11 or 12 right now. And Dawn is asking Ra if Ra has communicated, other than between 1981 and 1984, while he's getting the communication, anytime in the last 80 years before that with the human race. And is there anyone else from the coalitions that has been doing that in that time period? And he just got done asking because he said the law of one, is the law of one in any of the dusty old tomes that we have? And he said, in what you call the so-called Old Testament and in your New Testament, there is reference to it. And in other tomes around the world where they were exposed to the law of one, there is this law of one influencing in these religions. And so he's kind of trying to get a little bit more of a clarification of when and where from Ra, and that's where we are. So I'm going to go ahead and start. Somebody give me a sound check. Let me know out there that you can hear it okay or not, and we'll start with Ra. Okay, so let me get over here to this page and we'll give it a shot.
26.11 Questioner. Has RA communicated with any of our population in this century, in the last, say, 80 years? Ra, I am Ra. We have not. 26.12 Questioner. Has the law of one been communicated within the past 80 years by any other source to an entity in our population? Ra, I am Ra.
Yeah, and so you guys, some of you guys are asking about the tomorrow and what's going to be going in there, and Cassie's like, yeah, that will definitely be brought up tomorrow. You guys might want to tune in tomorrow. Thank you, Denise, for letting me know you can hear it. Thank you, Pamela, for letting me know that you can hear it. So yeah, you guys might want to tune in tomorrow because we are going to be talking a lot about individuality and what we're doing. And I think Peter GV wanted to talk about politics and physics, especially physics, and how there's a lot of misconceptions about because the physics that we have is also wrong. I talk about that in my book. Peter's aware of that. And so we're going to be talking about that as well. There's a lot we're going to cover tomorrow that's going to give you guys an insight into sort of the modus operandi of evil on this earth, and what all of us, that they hate us because we're light workers, light bringers, love bringers. They hate us that we say love and light because those are two thought processes that they hate. The process, the law of one, which is the light, and the law of love, which is what Jesus was here teaching. He wasn't teaching the law of one; he was teaching the law of love. Not saying that there's anything wrong with the law of one or the law of love. I teach both, but some people specifically talk about one thing, whereas Ra talks more about the law of one, about the creation, the creator, and about the laws of the universe and the things that govern the universe, and they center around that more than the spirituality, individual spirituality, and the laws of love. And so those of us who came here mostly teach both. We don't teach just one, we teach both, and we try to show you how that is fully encompassed. So I use the law of one, which is all about the laws and the way the universe is structured and governed. And I also try to pull you into the spiritual side of that to show you the laws of love, which are about spirituality and knowledge and the uplifting of the all and that balance, where the law of one is just about the balance, just about the laws, and just about everything that governs and the logic involved in that. I've never really kind of wrung that out, have I? I've never really wrung, even though Ra talks about that in the beginning, but he calls them the sisters of sorrow. So he doesn't really explain what the difference is between those two thought processes that are on the spiritual side of the different avenues. There's more, but those are the most prevalent here because you move into from here. And this is why this is more prevalent here, the law of one and the law of love, because from here, when you move up, those are the next two cycles that you learn in the fourth dimension, fifth dimension, is wisdom and love. So you learn about the laws and the laws that govern the universe and all the logic behind that and the structure, the cyclical nature of everything. And that's why I incorporate all of that, and I hit you with all the math. And then I show you the heart chakra and talk about the brain and the ego and all of that. I try to encompass all of that. And most of us who come down here to help you guys down here, we try to give you both of these two, like as if you're in class in school and you're about to graduate to go to college, and you have to have general education so that when you get to college, you're going to have also some general education, but then you're going to have a major that you're going to pick. Okay, so when you leave here, you actually pick a major on the next level, and then you can go back and learn. You can have a major and a minor, so you could do, like, say, the law of one and love, and have love as your minor, and have the law of one of your major. It doesn't matter, because you're going to learn both before you get to the sixth dimension, anyways. And then the sixth dimension is the balance, which is another law, and then there's more, but I don't want to get involved in all that right now. But there's more that you learn. And sacrifice is part of the law of love. So it's a subcategory of the law of love, and returning, being a wanderer, and doing this is part of that process that you learn. So I don't want to get too caught up in that, because I could spend hours and hours and hours just explaining how all that shit works in the fourth and fifth dimension going into the sixth, and that'll freak everybody out anyway, right? Right. So let me continue.
The ways of one have seldom been communicated, although there are rare instances in the previous 8080 of your years, as you measure time. There have been many communications from fourth density due to the drawing towards the harvest to fourth density. These are the ways of universal love and understanding.
Well, Rick, thank you. And I'll get, Rick said, guys, just so you know, I got my attention. I didn't have my glasses on, but it got my attention. He said, "I'm not much of a reader, Leo, but I want to see your book." And then Cassie said, I don't know if she's referring to that or something he said above that, but she said, Rick, abso-fucking-lutely spot on. But that might have been something he said above that, but it was funny how that caught my attention. I will be talking about my book. Obviously, when I tour, you're going to see me being on other people's podcasts and on mine, talking a lot about my book. So if you're not much of a reader, Rick, you may not have to read it, but you'll still get more out of it if you do. It'll be out on audio tape. I haven't secured that yet with the publisher, but I am going to publish it on audio book as well. That's another cost that I'll have to do. I'll either do it on my own, which that's what I did last time, or I'll have them do it and then pay somebody to read it, so you don't have to actually read. You can just listen to it. So look forward to that. After my book comes out, a few months after that, I'll throw that in, unless I get it in the package of stuff that I'm still negotiating with them. So it will eventually, though, Rick, be on audios for you to listen to. And it won't be me reading it. It'll be somebody else, but it'll be my book. So you won't have to read it, because some people just aren't good readers, or they've never really gotten into reading. And that's why a lot of those people that are like that tune into podcasts, because you hear better. That's how you learn. I know that. That's why I will do that for you. So in the beginning, you'll have to wait to hear me speak about my book, unless you want to plug through it yourself. But just know that after time, it will be on audio for you, CD or a digital audio for you to actually go click and listen to somebody saying it to you. That's why I do the podcast now these days, is so that you can do just that. You can grab my show wherever you're at. You can be driving down the road and you can listen to my show. You could be at your job doing, if you don't have to hear anything, and you can listen to my show. That's why I do this, because I know that some people, and then some people it bothers that they don't get to see my face anymore so much when I'm doing my show. When I'm on other people's shows, I'm always on camera. Some people want to see people as they speak. Right. So me not having my camera on kind of does bother some people because of that. Right. Okay. So let's continue. Hi, Troy, by the way. Troy said something in the chat, and so I got to see that and say hi. Troy said, Troy is watching. Welcome, Troy. If you don't speak, I don't know. So welcome. All right, let's continue.
The other teachings are reserved for those whose depth of understanding, if you will excuse this misnomer, recommend and attract such further communication. 26.13 Questioner, did the Confederation then step up its program of helping planet Earth sometime late in this last major cycle? It seems that they did from the previous data, especially with the Industrial Revolution. Can you tell me the attitudes and reasonings behind this step up? Is there any reason other than that they just wanted to produce more leisure time in the last, say, 100 years of the cycle? Is this the total reason? Ra, I am Ra. This is not the total reason. Approximately 200 of your years in the past, as you measure time, there began to be a significant amount of entities who by seniority were incarnating for learn/teaching purposes rather than for the lesser of the learn/teachings of those less aware of the process. This was our signal to enable communication to take place. The wanderers which came among you began to make themselves felt at approximately this time, firstly offering ideas or thoughts containing the distortion of free will. This was the prerequisite for further wanderers which had information of a more specific nature to offer. The thought must precede the action. 26.14 Questioner, Could you please make the instrument cough? Ra, cough. 26.15 Questioner, wondering if the one, Abraham Lincoln, could have possibly been a wanderer? Ra, I am Ra. This is incorrect. This entity was a normal, shall we say, Earth being which chose to leave the vehicle and allow an entity to use it on a permanent basis. This is relatively rare compared to the phenomenon of wanderers. You would do better considering the incarnations of wanderers such as the one known as Thomas, the one known as Benjamin. 26.16 Questioner, I am assuming you mean Thomas Edison and Benjamin Franklin. Ra, this is incorrect. We were intending to convey the sound vibration complex, Thomas Jefferson. The other, correct.
See, now, if you guys were here last week, you know that we've already covered this. This is kind of why I'm just letting it play and not saying a lot about it. But I was prefacing everything with where we're going to end up going. So everything that I said in the first 30 minutes before I started playing this, you'll understand in the next 20 minutes or 30 minutes as we go. So if you were here and you're like, wait a minute, didn't we just hear this last week? Yes, we did. So I backed up about, like I said, 3 or 4, maybe 5 questions from where we were last week on purpose because it was leading us to where we were going. And I didn't want to just like jump right in because then people were like, wait a minute, hold on, where are we? Weren't we talking about this last week? And so I wanted to back up a little bit and move into it. All right, so let's continue.
26.17 Questioner, thank you. Can you tell me where the entity that used Lincoln Abraham's body, what density he came from and where? Ra, I am Ra. This entity was 4th vibration. 26.18 Questioner, I assume positive? Ra, that is correct.
Now, there's a distinction between wanderer and walk-in. There's a lot of people out there now that are saying they're walk-ins, and that is not as prevalent as people think. They are actually wanderers, but they think they're walk-ins. Okay, they'll wake up and believe that they're walk-ins. Walk-ins do happen, but it's not as much as you think. I've watched a show where there was like 10 people who believed that they were walk-ins. I'm like, you guys are not walk-ins. I'm like, there's not one of you here that is a walk-in. A walk-in is someone who literally takes the place of a soul that was in a body. And the only reason that changes is not because the soul dies, because your soul can never die. Although some of the people in the ancient aliens world and that spiritual world says, oh, there's these evil aliens that can capture your soul and zap your soul and make your soul forget. That's just it's poppycock. It is completely wrong thinking that they have no idea what they're talking about. Okay, now your soul can't die. You can get damaged. The soul can be damaged, but it cannot be terminated by anyone other than the creator of the universe. But it can get damaged. Thermonuclear detonation actually does damage your soul. Okay, most of the souls that are on this planet currently are damaged from all the nuclear explosions that happened here and the radiation. Even mine. It's part of what's keeping everybody stuck. That's part of the problem. So it does damage your soul in a little bit, but it doesn't. It's just not going to destroy you. It would take a chain reaction that is so large that it actually destroys the universe to destroy the souls, because this is all happening in our head, by the way. So it's like having a headache or a slight brain aneurysm. If you have a migraine headache, that's actually what a nuclear explosion actually is in your brain. It's a nuclear explosion in your brain that went on in there somewhere. And I don't want to get involved in that because that's the microcosm to the macrocosm. It'll freak you out if I start telling you about that. So literally, what happens is, what happened with Abraham Lincoln is that the soul that was in Abraham Lincoln's body had been here for about 150,000 years and was very tired of being here and wanted to go home, and knew that he had come here, because it was not a male or female. It's just when you come here, you embody the characteristics of a male or female in the body that you're in, but your soul doesn't have a sex. And so it came here, and it was supposed to become the president and be assassinated and leave its mark on the earth to change the course of history the way Abraham Lincoln did. Although the person was so tired and didn't want to be here and was having a hard time becoming the president of the United States and doing what he was supposed to do. So he was calling out for help, and another soul heard the cry and went to the council of Venus and said, I can go down there and be I can be the Abraham Lincoln that he's supposed to be. Can I go and ask the soul there to relinquish the contract that he has to be that and let them come home, but we don't want them to lose any of the credit that he or she is going to get for not doing what it did. And the council said yes. If they agree to that, then yes. So then that spirit came to Abraham Lincoln when he was asleep one night and talked to the soul that was in the body occupying it and said, hey, listen, I'm here to help. I'm from the council, and it's been approved that you can go home and you're not going to lose credit for coming down here, and no one's going to look at you any differently. And I will step in and do what you were supposed to do and take your contract over and sacrifice myself to do that. And Abraham Lincoln, the character that was Abraham Lincoln, said, oh, thank you. And please, thank you. Yes. And went home to heal. And then the other person just took over and inserted into the body, had all the memories, all the manner, all everything. No one knew the difference. Woke up the next morning and just became Abraham Lincoln. And no one knew anything different of it. That's a walk-in. Okay. A wanderer comes here legally. They're born in a human body and veiled like everyone else. Okay. And so you literally go through the birthing process and you grow up, and then you have to wake up at some point. And if you don't, then you just live a life not knowing that you're a wanderer, not knowing that you were supposed to be doing what you're supposed to be doing. And that's the sacrifice that you undertake. Walk-ins most of the time know that it doesn't happen as much as these people think. So you have all these people going, yes, I am a walk-in. I came in at this time, and I'm looking at the people, and with the eyes of a medium, with the eyes of someone who is in fact not veiled. And I'm like, that one's not a walk-in. They think they're a walk-in. They're not a walk-in. That person was born in that body. They just weren't activated until a certain age. So they think right now, because they haven't actually tapped into their own memory, they think that when they were unveiled was when they first got here. And because they shifted into the body, and some of them will tell you that they believe they're a walk-in, but they shifted into this body at a certain time. But the soul that was in there before was also theirs. Okay. I would be considered a walk-in in this body right now because I have shifted a few times into this reality that I'm in currently. Not too long ago, there was a shift where I shifted into this body. A year ago, last May, right? So you go backwards in time to May of this year and then go a year earlier, I shifted into this body with a whole bunch of other people, but there was another shift that happened. So I have memory of that shift, but then there was another shift that happened to me a month ago. And then I watched events unfold live around me that let me knew that there was a shift, and no one else has had so it hasn't been a large shift. So it wasn't one of the ones that we know was orchestrated by us to write and fix the ley lines and the reality that is here. Not going to get into all those details either, because that'll fuck you up, right? I talk about that in my book, but I'm not going to get into all those details right now. Peter Coyle, there you are, my brother. I was going to talk to you after the show. Now that you can hear me, I was going to send you voicemails. Tomorrow, 8 p.m. tomorrow, Saturday, we're going to be live on Jacqueline's show that we were going to do last week, but we didn't do it. So we're going to do it tomorrow. So I hope you don't already have plans for tomorrow night, because 8 p.m. we're going to be on Jacqueline's show, Oneness Project Light, and I would love to have you on there because we're going to do a roundtable, and it's going to be our coalition. Mostly members of the coalition are going to be on there talking. So, Peter, hopefully you can make that, brother, tomorrow night at 8 p.m. We'll talk after the show tonight. Hopefully you can come on here. Peter GV from South Africa is going to be there. Cassie, of course, Jacqueline, myself, and we're going to have a few other people. But hopefully you'll be able to come on. Right. So Denise said, Leo, Julie is back. Welcome back, Julie. Right. Julie on here. Karen's back today, too. Hopefully, Karen, you can come on. I'd love to have you on there and talk tomorrow as well. So we don't know exactly who all is going to be on there. And we may have people that can only come and talk for a few minutes and have to leave. Right. But it's going to be cool. So either way, it's going to be, you guys should tune in tomorrow. That's 12 p.m. West Coast America time, GMT -7, UK -8. So it'll be 8 p.m. UK time. So wherever you are in the world, you can figure out that. If you're in Australia, it'll be Sunday morning. It'll be Sunday morning. If you're in Australia, it'll be 4 hours earlier than it is right now for you in Australia on Sunday. So wherever you are on Saturday right now in Australia, look the 4 hours prior to now, and then go 24 hours into the future to Sunday, and that's when we're going to be on the show. Right? I just don't know what time it is in Australia. I should have asked you guys. There's 3 of you in here that are from Australia right now. So depending on what part of Australia you're at, because you guys have what, 2 or 3 time zones there too, right? Okay, so you guys should tune in. So literally, you have to realize that a walk-in, I can be considered a walk-in and think I'm a walk-in because I literally know. Yeah, we'll talk later then, Peter. That I literally know that there was a shift when the personality, the soul that I am currently, came into this body. But I know, because I'm unveiled, I know that was me. That was just another version of me. So it wasn't like it was a separate soul that's not me, like Abraham Lincoln was a separate soul and then a different soul came in and filled in. That's a true walk-in. Okay, so just because those people were activated or shifted into that body when they were in their 20s or 30s or 40s, and now they're more awake than they were prior to that, they have to wake up enough to realize, was that just an unveiling? And they literally have now different memory of a higher mind consciousness. And if that's the case, they're not a walk-in, they're just a wanderer who got activated. Do you see? So there's a lot more nuance to what they don't know that's out there, but they're not wrong, but they're not technically right either, unless they know for a fact there was a different soul here and it wasn't my soul. But some of them aren't really fully unveiled yet, and they will be later. And you'll see some of those people who claim to be walk-ins tell you that technically they could be considered a walk-in, but legally they're actually a wanderer. And I use that term legally because that's the actual term. Because in the context of the universe, to be here legally, and it's not just a political term like illegal alien or legal alien, although that's where we base that on, subconsciously not knowing that, by the way, setting up borders and saying that, as below, so above, as within, so without. But the to be here legally, in fact, Jesus said this when they asked him. If you go back and read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John and pay attention and find an older version instead of the new modern, they tell you that the Bible says don't ever change the words in here. But if you get a new modern American version of the Holy Roman Catholic Bible and then go back to a King James version and then find an older Greek or a Coptic or Roman version of it from 100 to 400 years ago or 1,000 years ago, and then translate the words that you read that have been translated into English, and then find out what those words mean and what the word was translated from, and then look at the words they're using today, you're going to find that there's a completely different version being painted to you of the Bible today than what they were telling. And they've changed the meaning of the Bible over the course of the last 1,000 years. Okay. All of them, unless you read old scrolls. It's just like if you go, and I said this last week, and then we'll get back into Raw again. If you go and you, Reese, I didn't see you there. Welcome, brother. 6 a.m. See, there you go. So you're in Northwest, is that Northwest Wales and no NSW? So you're in the West. So it's 6 a.m. for you now. So if you go 4 hours prior to this, so that, because if it's 6 a.m. there now and it's 4 here, it'll be 4 hours. So it'll be like 2 a.m. That's when we'll be live. I apologize if it's that late for you guys over there in Australia tomorrow, but you guys can catch us on the MP3 version afterwards, or watch the show on YouTube on Oneness Project Light, or on Facebook, and I'll have it shared on Facebook as well, on Orion Rising and on my page, so you can watch it if it's not live. Is my point. Okay, so technically that's what that is. But we're talking about Lincoln, and Lincoln was a walk-in, and Lincoln was a rare occasion, and I think Raw explains that here, and if not, they did at a different time. But I wanted to preface that because there's the people who are saying they're walk-ins, they're not wrong. They're just not fully awake to realize that they're not technically a walk-in, and 1 or 2 of them might actually be. Just because you shift into a body that you actually have memory of occupying doesn't mean that you didn't have memory of occupying it because you were a walk-in, unless you have the memory of I was not, because I have the memory that I was not this person, but I know that I was this human being that looked just like this. I'm not picking up the memories of the walk-in. I'm unveiled. So I know the difference of when a shift happens, that it's just a shift, or if it is a walk-in shift. I would have that memory of saying, well, I was out and I came to take the place of this person. What happened was that the the person that I was, the persona of my spirit that I was in this body shifted to a different reality where that version of me was needed. And I shifted into this reality because we're writing the realities and bringing them back into focus. So when we're doing that, we're actually blending some realities together. I said I wasn't going to get involved in explaining all this, but I am quickly, and then I'll move on. So there's a lot of fractured realities that you're unaware of out there. There's almost infinite realities, and we're unfracturing some of those because they did that on purpose to confuse your soul, and that's a conversation I can't get into right now. And bringing that back together is solidifying your individuality closer and closer to a singularity. So that's been fractured away from you, and you were unaware of that happening. That's part of the temporal war that we don't talk about hardly at all because the people here on this earth are not ready to know that yet. Okay, but we are getting to the point of understanding it, and that's the only reason I can tell you this right now. Okay, otherwise I couldn't have told you this 5 years ago. I would say temporal war, and then the only thing I could tell you is that there's a war that's going on throughout time that is outside of this reality, and that's all I could tell you 5 years ago. Okay, and that concept in and of itself sounds insanely crazy to some people on this earth even now. What I'm saying to you right now would sound insane crazy, and people go, that guy's a freaking maniac. He's the devil. He's possessed by demons, and he's leading you to hell. Right? Okay, guys, let's continue.
26.19 Questioner. Was his assassination in any way influenced by Orion or any other negative force? Ra. I am Ra. This is correct. 26.20 Questioner. Thank you. In the recent past of the last 30 to 40 years, the UFO phenomena has become known to our population. What was the original reason for? I know there have been UFOs throughout history, but what was the original reason for the increase in what we call UFO activity, say, in the past 40 years? Ra. I am Ra. Information which Confederation sources had offered to your entity, Albert Einstein, became perverted, and instruments of destruction began to be created. Examples of this being the Manhattan Project and its product. Information offered through Wanderer, sound vibration, Nikola Tesla, also being experimented with for potential destruction.
Oh, okay. Rick said it's right now, just now, it's 4 o'clock here, so it's 9 there. So 9, 8, 7, 6, was that 5 in the morning? It will be noon my time here. So what is that? Is that 15 hours? So you guys are 15 hours ahead of me currently where you're at, right? I think that's what that translates to. Yeah, because you would be 15 hours ahead of me would be where you are now. So for those of you in that part of Australia where Rick is, which is, I think, the east side, right? Or is it the west side? East side, I think. Yeah, the east side, mid to east Australia, you understand that. So that'll be noon, West Coast America time, GMT -7, UK -8. So that tells you where you are in the world. You should be able to know by that what time for us. Okay, let's continue here.
Example, your so-called Philadelphia experiment. Thus, we felt a strong need to involve our thought forms in whatever way we of the Confederation could be of service in order to balance these distortions of information meant to aid your planetary sphere. 26.21 Questioner. Then what you did, I am assuming, then, is to create an air of mystery with the UFO phenomena, as we call it, and then by telepathy send many messages that could be either accepted or rejected under the following, of course.
Right, and Anna's talking to Karen Cox, and I don't know why you guys had that conversation, but I have to read what Anna said because this is so true, and most people, this is part of what I talk about in my book, and many of us, millions, Jacqueline would say billions, and correct me, billions of us are trying to bring to you on this planet. And the way she's explaining this, she says, Karen Cox, before we come here, everything is written to what we need to learn here for your individual life is what she's referring to, who we choose to learn this lesson with, what we would like to accomplish in this lifetime spiritually for our growth and to help humanity, how long we have here. Everything that is the major part of the earthly experience is already written. Everything we go through is for reasons for our growth and to lead us to the right path. Some will go in a straight line. Most of us have many forks in the roads to help us. Many people are linear, and so they do that, and they grow. They go from a point A to point B. I do that in some ways. I'm glad you brought that up, Anna, because I wanted to talk about that and how people learn. Right, I'm one of those few people that actually can learn in all of the aspects. But then again, I am a 33, life number, which is the highest ascended master that you can have. And I think that's part of what I brought here as a skill set for my, learning. And I have the ability to see that in other people. So yes, everything that you do prior to here, when you come here, and that's when I teach, and I've talked about this, and I don't think you were in the chat when I talked about that, Anna, where I literally tell people, and we're teaching people that when they're talking about things that happen in this lifetime, or when they're saying, who was I in this past life? I would love to get a past life reading. And I'm always telling people, everything that you already did has already been considered. So you don't need to learn who you were in past lives, because you've already learned the stuff that you were supposed to learn in that past life. You just aren't aware of it here because in this life you're veiled. However, this entire life that you have, to Anna's point, this entire life you have currently is set up because of the culmination and correlation of everything you've learned in all the lives you've had, because you don't want to have to learn the same things over and over again if you've already learned them. So you sit down in after the place of reflecting, when your spirit goes up to the other side, you sit down with your guides and your higher self, and you discuss what it is that you had tried to learn in that lifetime. And did I learn what I was supposed to learn or wanted to learn in that lifetime? If so, then you start structuring what the next life is going to be. And this is what Anna is referring to, that you sit down and you write down everything that you want to learn and how you want to learn it, when you want to learn it. And not saying that on February 7th of 2023 or 2026, I want this thing to happen. But you write down, here's all the things that I want to learn, and then you line up who you want to be born to, who's going to be your relatives, all of the things that are going to happen to you, or the possibilities of all of the things because of the chaos that goes on down here. You say, I need to learn what it is to sacrifice. I need to learn what it is to lose people in my life. And these things, you're going to have those anyways. But if you've never gone through them, and you've never seen death, or you've never had almost died, or these things, or you've never had strife, all of these things will come into play and present themselves in the lifetime that you're at. And if you don't learn what you were supposed to learn from that scenario, those things keep repeating over and over in your life. I don't know what it is, but the people keep dying around me, and I can't figure out what the hell. Am I just unlucky, or am I the lucky one because everybody dies around me and I'm toxic? Because if you get to know me, you're going to die. Well, that's because something in that death scenario of the loss of someone dying or someone dying around you, there's something that you're supposed to be learning that you haven't learned yet. And so it keeps presenting itself. You keep running into people who die because you get to know them and then they die. And you're like, I don't know what it is. Is it me? I must be bad luck, because every time I show up, people around me die. It's because there's something you're not learning from that experience that you were supposed to learn. And once you learn that, you'll see that you won't be exposed to so many people dying. That happens with everything. Okay, so all these things pop up in your life, and some things are just random and they're going to pop up because that's the way life is. So people are going to die around you, and there may not be anything you're supposed to learn from that. But you'll know that because it won't bother you so much, and you'll go, oh yeah, I know it sucks when somebody dies, and you go through all of this. If you don't know that, those things don't seem personal to you until it gets closer and closer to you and somebody you love dies, and then you all of a sudden change your entire structure of your life because now it means something to you, where before people getting killed didn't mean anything to you. An example of that was when I was working as a frame shop manager for a company in the city of Berkeley, California, which is about 6 miles north of San Francisco, California, in the San Francisco Bay Area, in the most liberal place on the face of the earth. I was working there, and I had a framer, a girl that was working for me, and 9/11 happened, and the Twin Towers went down, and she came in and was like, I don't care about those people. They're all the way over there in New York, and who cares? That's politics anyway. I don't have anything to do with that. They deserve that because of all the stuff that they're doing. Those people of New York and those politicians deserve everything that's happening. This country's evil and all this stuff. And I was like, you don't really understand what's going on. Those people over there are human beings, and they were subjected to this whether or not. It doesn't matter whether the government had something to do with it or did it on purpose. People got killed. People died because of some political or spiritual war that's happening between factions of people. They're humans. They're going through a mess. There's a lot of people that died there and a loss, and there's people that are still dying. And she was like, I don't care about those people at all. Well, about 2 weeks later, she decided to fly out to see her boyfriend who was going to Culinary Academy in New York City. So she got on a plane and she flew out there, and she came in at night in New York. And I know this because she came back and apologized to me and was crying and telling me the story. Her boyfriend didn't die. It's not where I'm going. But when she got out there and they were flying in, the people got on, the flight attendant got on the horn and said that the captain told us that we're coming into New York. And if you all look out the left side of the plane, you can see the place where the Twin Towers used to be. And when she looked out the window, all she saw was all of these lights and then this big black hole where there was no light. And she realized how big that was and how the destruction was. And then when she got there and landed, and her boyfriend took her down there, and she saw the rubble and the people crying and the stories and everybody there, she came back a changed person and came back to me when she got home, came in and apologized to me for being so insensitive, and cried and told me the story of the anguish of the people in New York and what they went through and what they're going through currently, and how I was so right about that, and that she was so blinded by her ideology. And I said, I knew that at the time, but you needed to see that to change your life. And it changed the path of her life. And she became more spiritual. Before that, she was this, crazy hippie Berkeley, going to Cal Berkeley kid who hated America and hated the world and all politics and politicians, and everybody's my enemy and I should have the freedom to do whatever I want. And then all of a sudden she was like, wow, I need to reevaluate my life, because what I'm doing is what they want me to do. So I don't know what's really going on. And I was like, now you're starting to catch on. So then it changed her entire life. I have no idea who she is now, what she became, any of that. So I don't have that kind of story to say, and then she became a politician, or then she became a business owner. I don't know any of that, because it wasn't long after that when she said, I have to leave this. I need to go to school, go back to school. And I can't have this kind of job. I need to start thinking about my life. And so she left, and I never saw her again. I'm assuming she's still alive. I'm assuming she made something of herself, and who knows what she's doing in the world. And someday I may run into her again and get the story, but I don't know that right now. But my point of that was that nobody did anything. She didn't do anything until something changed her mind. The same thing. I was a pool and spa person. I was a chemist, and I had a certification. I could build swimming pools, and I was maintaining swimming pools for this company up and down the west coast of the United States. And I kept complaining because the drains at the bottom of the pool were too strong, and the drains themselves had a grate over them, but the suction was too strong in most of the pools. And I knew that it was a hazard, and anybody who had this knowledge knew it was a hazard. And we were crying to the world to listen to us, to pay us to put in better drains so that the people couldn't get hurt and die. Because if you went down there and started playing with the drain, it could suck you to the drain and pin you to the bottom of the pool until you died, because you couldn't breathe and you would let out your air and you would die and drown. And that was happening all over the world and in the United States. And those of us in the industry were trying to get people to listen to us. And then finally, what happened, a tragic accident happened to somebody in power. A congressman in the United States government of the federal government of the United States had a granddaughter who got stuck in a drain and drowned. And it made him so distraught. And he was so beside himself because of what happened that he passed legislation around the country of the United States that all swimming pools everywhere had to be mandated to have somebody go down and change that drain to a new drain that would not allow people to get stuck to the drain and die. It took a politician's granddaughter, only grandchild, to die at the age of 7 years old before they would change that, after 100,000 deaths were happening in the United States every 2 years the same exact way. No one cared that all these peasants and slaves were dying in these pools, it was the parents' fault for not watching the child until it happened to somebody in power. And then they made a legislation change that affected the entire nation of the United States and became a federal law. Those of us in the industry were very happy because everyone had to pay frogmen, that's what we call divers guys, to go down and change those things, because if you drain a pool, that creates problems. But we were glad that happened, and that happened 15 years ago now in the United States. And those of us who are in the industry were so happy that that was happening, because nobody would listen to us. They didn't want to spend the money. No corporation wanted to spend the money to fix that, to save lives, because they were not mandated and told to until someone in the United States Congress lost someone. That goes back to all the truths we cling to are directly related to a certain point of view, our individual point of view. All right, let's continue with Ra.
The law of one, so that the population would start thinking seriously about the consequences of what they were doing. Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. This is partially correct. There are other services we may perform. Firstly, the integration of souls or spirits, if you will, in the event of use of these nuclear devices in your space/time continuum. This the Confederation has already done. 26.22 Questioner, I don't fully understand what you mean by that. Could you expand a little bit? Ra, I am Ra. The use of intelligent energy transforming matter into energy is of such a nature among these weapons that the transition from space/time third density to time/space third density, or what you may call your heaven worlds, is interrupted in many cases. Therefore, we are offering our...
Yeah, right? Anna again is talking. Anna, you should come on the show tomorrow. Anna's talking to Rick, and she says, Rick, the hardest lessons in life to learn is how to walk away and release that burden when you feel others will not wake up to acknowledge past actions. It's the same thing with being awake or asleep, Anna, right? The hardest thing you have to do is the realization that you can't wake people up. So you go through that process. When you become awake yourself, you start pointing at everybody and going, you're asleep. You need to wake up. Everybody needs to wake up. Jesus Christ. I'm using that vernacular the way Americans do. Jesus caramba. And there's the Spanish version of it. I can't believe you guys are so asleep. Wake up. And then people are like, you're freaking crazy. And then it takes you a while to learn that lesson of, I can't make them. Why can't I make them wake up? And it takes a long time for people to learn that. We try to get you past that as soon as possible. But the same thing is true for what she's saying, where people who do things in their past and they won't admit to themselves or anyone else out loud that what they did in the past was wrong. That's part of the ego, and that's part of the waking up process. So Anna's perfectly right. There are certain things that we all have to learn, and some of those are exactly the same way, where you look at somebody and you go, they're not going to admit they're wrong. I literally, one of my ex-wives, almost both of my ex-wives when they were younger, would never admit they were wrong, ever. My ex-wife that I just divorced a few years ago would never admit, because that's the way her family was. No one ever said they were wrong, ever. And they never apologized to you. So it didn't matter what they said. They were right. And you could not get them convinced that they were wrong about anything. Even if the entire universe proved to them that they were wrong, they wouldn't go, oh, you know what? You were right. I was wrong. Never. Some people are that way. And but she has changed. Both of my wives, and I was that way when I was younger too. So I'm not saying I was so much superior than them. I lost a woman that I probably should have been with for the rest of my life, because at the age of 18, I was still thinking that we should get married and she should take my last name. And then she was like, no, why would I do that? And then I was realizing, well, you're right. I can get that because you don't have anybody to pass on the name. So I'm okay with that. But I still needed to be, I thought I needed to be married. And she didn't want to get married. She just wanted to cohabitate. That's what we called it back then. And I was like, I don't know that I can do that. Well, we separated and split up and never saw each other again. And now I look back at that, and now I'm in a place where if somebody said to me, we need to get married, I would go, no, no, we don't need to get married. Married is just an institution where they can charge you money for and change your taxes. So the truth is, if you and I are dedicated to each other, and we know that we are, if you can't be with me without me doing that, I'll accommodate you. But the truth is that the marriage is just going to make us pay more taxes. But if that's what you have to have for you to be okay with, I would be able to do that. But on the other side, if somebody I was getting with said, I don't want to ever be married again, but we can be together and just know that we're together, I'd be like, all right, I'm good with that. because of what I've been through. So, but I'm willing to and have been learned to be willing to admit, and that's part of that learning process that Anna's talking about, is that you literally have to look within yourself and admit to yourself everything. Not just I did shit that was bad when I was younger, but I did shit that was wrong. I'm not right now. I'm not perfect, never was, never will be. You have to admit all those things about yourself. That's when you go from being subjective to objective. Okay, not objective, but objective. Those are, so there's a couple of words there like, like imminent and imminent, right? Those very subtle difference in those two words I just said to you. There's one letter difference. There's a vowel in the first word that is an I, imminent. When you take that vowel out and put an A in there, it becomes imminent. Those words mean the opposite thing. It's like esoteric and exoteric. One letter changes. You take the S out and put an X in there, and it goes from esoteric to exoteric. One means forbidden knowledge, and the other one means overt knowledge that everyone can have access to. Okay. And even esoteric knowledge, everyone can gain access to, but it's not just there and readily available until you attain it. Imminent means like imminent danger, imminent doom. Imminent means the opposite. It means something wondrous is about to happen, not destruction. But the word, and these are the words that have been put into the English language on purpose, are similar, like they're doing today with equity and equality. Do you realize what the difference between equity and equality is? There's only a two-letter difference in that entire word. Otherwise, it's the identical word. They even sound identical. So they're blending the word, and what they do is they blend the word in the beginning, and then they'll get rid of equality. And it'll just be called equity. They're already trying to justify it by telling you that equity is the practice of actually making things equal, and equality isn't actually equal unless everybody does the right thing. Well, that only works if you're evil and you refuse to do the right thing. And the people who are trying to sell you equity are the ones who don't want to do the right thing and have to be forced to. They want to have total power and control over you. So they're telling you it's necessary for us to be in control to make you do the right thing, because left to your own devices, because their truth that they're clinging to is directly related to a certain point of view, theirs, which is a narcissistic, evil, power, control, corruption point of view. If you're like me, you're not going to do the right thing because you're self-serving. So you must be like me. Therefore, I have to tell you to get off the box and let the kid be able to look over the fence, because you won't do that for yourself. No one will. And that's what they're trying to tell you, because they're basing their reality on what they will do 100% of the time. And they're applying that to all of you out there and saying, you don't have the wherewithal to do the right thing. We know that because we wouldn't do the right thing, but they don't want to say that out loud. So they're selling you on their reality of, if you're living in the flesh and in the 3D reality, you will never do the right thing unless we force you to. So we're going to take control of everyone so that we can force you to do what you're supposed to do. And what you're supposed to do by their force is never the actual right thing. It's what they want you to do to take away your control. That's the truth of that. Okay. So what Ra is talking about here, to get back from what Anna was saying into what Ra was saying, what Ra is saying here is that literally this, and exactly what I was saying before, that that these things arise in front of you to give you rise to the possibility of seeing what it is that you were supposed to learn, or what it is that the society is moving into a place to be able to learn as a whole. And this is what we're discussing here. And that's why I said what I said way back when I said, you're going to see where we're going, that all this political talk that I'm talking about that doesn't have to do with this thing right now has to do with your soul and moving into the soul and the understanding of your soul. Let's continue.
Ourselves as those who continue the integration of soul or spirit complex during transition from space/time to time/space. 26.2.
Space, time to time, space. Okay. So that's a place where time exists and a place where time does not exist. And that's the difference between 3D reality and moving into 4D, the real 4D, not 4D, 5D here in this reality, which is only a level, an octave of third dimensional reality, but fourth dimension for density and fifth density. Okay. The actual physical place that you would be moving into when you leave here, not the spiritual place and awareness that people are moving into that they call 4D and 5D, thinking that means we're going to transition past the fourth dimension into the sixth dimension. No, you're going to go into the fourth dimension next. But when you wake up there, you'll giggle about if you wake up here before you go there, you'll giggle about thinking that about yourself, but it's just an octave in the third dimension, part of the learning here that expands your consciousness, that gives over to you the possibility of understanding that which is you're going to transition into. This is what Ra's talking about here.
2-3 questioner, could you please give me an example from, let us say, Hiroshima or Nagasaki of how this is done? Ra, I am Ra. Those who were destroyed, not by radiation, but by the trauma of the energy release, found not only the body/mind/spirit complex made unviable, but also a disarrangement of that unique vibratory complex you have called the spirit complex.
Rick, to answer that, Rick said, why did my comment appear twice and one with my old profile pic? I don't know when you changed your profile pic, but sometimes it takes a little bit of time for Messenger or Facebook to upgrade to the new picture that you had. Sometimes it takes like 24 or 48 hours or longer. And Messenger does the same thing. If I have change my photo and I go on to Messenger, I'll see my old photo there for a few days before Messenger updates to my new photo. Same thing happens when I'm over on Instagram too. So, and I don't know why I didn't see your message twice. So you may have saw it twice, or did it come to you? I'm going back here trying to see if I saw it, but I did remember seeing your old profile picture once, and then I saw a new profile picture pop up, and I was like, that's weird. He must have just changed his profile picture because there was a different profile picture a minute ago, and now it's a new picture, right? So I did see that, but I didn't see your actual thing come through twice. So that might have been a glitch on your phone, but it did have a different profile picture and then a new profile picture since I started the show an hour and a half ago, since you got here, just so you know. But that happens sometimes when people change their profile. It just takes a while for it to upgrade to the next platform. Weird. I don't know why, but it does that. Programming. All right, let's continue.
Which we understand is a mind/body/spirit complex, to be completely disarranged without possibility of reintegration. This would be the loss to the creator of part of the creator, and thus we were given permission, not to stop the events, but to ensure the survival of the, shall we say, disembodied mind/body/spirit complex. This we did in those events which you mention, losing no spirit or portion or holograph or microcosm.
Julie, thank you for saying that. Julia, Rick says, or Julie says to Rick, I feel you, Rick. And then she says, sorry. So sorry. She says, but it seems like a lot of us here have the same similar learning experience. We're going to be talking about that tomorrow on the show. Thank you for the segue into another commercial on Jacqueline Taylor's podcast on Oneness Project Light on YouTube and on Facebook. And I'll put it up on Orion Rising and on my page, as well as a few of our other pages. We'll have it linked into the chats, Law of One chat, and Returning to the Old Ways, and probably put it up in Returning to the Old Ways, the group, and probably a few other groups that we're involved in. We'll share it out to you guys. Well, that's one of the things we're going to be talking about, to show people that most of our learning processes, the learning curve, is a little more similar than we realize until you start talking to people about experiences in life, and then you start to realize that you do. And then a lot of us that are currently working together from in the coalitions, we find out that our life paths are almost identical, even though we're in different places. Cassie and I have done that many times when we talk about our past and the things that we've gone through and the places that we've lived. And the names, like I lived in a place called Pleasant Hill, she lived in a place called Pleasant Hill in a different state. But other things that we found that are very similar in our lives, that different things happen to us at the same ages, or the same things happen to us at the same age, even though we're separated by years in age. You will find that those synchronicities are there to draw you to one another as you're talking. Then you have similar experiences. You get to know each other more because your experiences are very similar. Those are designed into your life so that when you meet people in your life later on in life, and you start talking your experiences, you have things in common, and it helps you to communicate that and to learn each other better and trust each other more, because you have a lot of the same experiences. So it's not that way with everyone in the world, but you're going to find that the like-minded people, kindred spirits, if you will, end up finding each other. And then you have similar experiences and you go, what are the odds of that? Well, the odds are actually far better. They're astronomical, but far better than you would think because it was part of your planning, so that you guys would actually have an easier time melding and remembering and trusting each other. So, but knowledge is common. So knowledge that you unlock as you ascend is the same knowledge that everyone has access to. And that is what they don't want you to know. And they try to downplay and say that we're all crazy. But when you get together, and this is the show that if Peter GV were here, he would be telling you this, that we did like 5 or 6 years ago. We talked about that to show you these people who didn't know each other from around the world, who didn't grow up, in the same country or in the same town, or didn't know one another for 30 years. And we just met. We all have the same knowledge. How is that possible? Because the knowledge that you unlock as you're ascending spiritually is knowledge that everyone can and does unlock. The only thing that is different is the things you have learned that by your experiences that are individual to you. Otherwise, the knowledge that you gain is identical, but the way in which you gain that knowledge is directly related to you for your best way of learning that stuff because of everything that you've gone through. And we'll be talking about that tomorrow as well. So you guys might want to tune in to hear those kinds of stories and have us showing you these comparisons in more detail tomorrow at noon p.m., 12 p.m. West Coast America time. That's GMT -7, UK -8. And I think that, did we figure that was 16 hours minus Australia time? You guys can figure it out. If you know what GMT time is, you can figure, or UK time, you guys can figure it out. So that will be on Oneness Project Light tomorrow. Tune in and hear our stories and hear our comparisons so that you guys can realize that exactly, and all the things you'll see. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff. So we'll see how long we're on. We don't know how long we're going to go. I have no idea how long we're going to go. We'll find it out tomorrow. All right, guys, let's continue.
Of the macrocosmic infinite one. 26.24 Questioner. Could you please make the instrument cough and then tell me just vaguely how you accomplished this? Ra. Cough. I am Ra. This is accomplished through our understanding of dimensional fields of energy. The higher or more dense energy field will control the less dense. 26.25 Questioner. But then, in general, then you're saying that if you will allow Earth, the population of this planet, to have a nuclear war and many deaths from that war, but you will be able to create a condition where these deaths will be no more traumatic, shall I say, with respect to entrance to the heaven world or astral world or whatever we call it, than death by a bullet or normal means of dying of old age. Is this correct? Ra. I am Ra. This is incorrect. It would be more traumatic. However, the entity would remain an entity. 26.26 Questioner. Can you tell me the condition of the entities who were, shall I say, killed in Nagasaki and Hiroshima? At this time, what is their condition? Ra. I am Ra. They of this trauma have not yet fully begun the healing process. They are being helped as much as is possible. 26.27 Questioner. When the healing process is complete with these entities, will this experience of the death due to the nuclear bomb cause them to be, shall we say, regressed in their climb toward the fourth density? Ra. I am Ra. Such actions as nuclear destruction affect the entire planet. There are no differences at this level of destruction, and the planet will need to be healed. 26.28 Questioner.
Guys, so remember I had mentioned this earlier. So when the nuclear explosion in the mind of the universe is like having a mini stroke down the neural network. The nuclear explosion actually occurs along what the Jedis call the Force, and what the Vikings called the Yggdrasil, the tree of life. That is the neural network, like it's in our brain. That's why I made those reels or shorts, depending on what platform, that shows you the comparison between the neural network of the human brain and the neural network of space itself, and how a human brain cell looks just like the galaxy in the universe. There is no difference. One is far more intricate. So, and I use that term on purpose. There's what literally the human brain cell is a microcosm to the macrocosm. So the human brain cell, even though it has a billion tentacles, the universe has like a trillion of those tentacles. And a nuclear explosion causes a chain reaction along that pathway. And that pathway in our mind would be the ganglia cells, the nerve cells that go between the cells of memory in your mind. That is what it is for the universe. And so when there's a nuclear explosion, it actually does damage to the fabric of space and time. So it does damage to the human soul and the planet itself. This planet has been in pain and has been damaged from all the nuclear detonations that have happened in the last of 75 to 80 years now on this Earth. And also the solar system from all of the ones that happened on Maldek when that planet blew up, which is the Kuiper Belt now, and on the particle beam weapons on Mars and stuff like that. Those do damage and send a shockwave out to the universe from every place that happens in the universe. And people aren't aware of that at the level of the destruction when they create that. Oppenheimer was, if you guys saw the movie, they just put that movie out a couple of months ago. If you see that, you realize that Oppenheimer, I've seen the video my whole life watching him say, I have become the destroyer of worlds. I have become death, the destroyer of worlds. And that's true. If you ever see the actual video of him actually saying that, he went into obscurity after that. He was depressed for most of his life because he realized that he had unleashed a weapon on the Earth that could destroy the entire planet. And when they detonated it, they said there was a 50-50 possibility that chain reaction would continue and destroy the entire planet, the entire solar system, and quite possibly the entire universe. And they did it anyways. Think about that. They knew this may not stop and it may destroy everything. And they still detonated it anyways. That's scary. That is insane. Only an insane person or group of people would say, we may destroy the entire universe. Fuck it, do it. Let's see what happens. Because if it doesn't, we're going to have the most destructive force on the planet. We're going to be the richest, most powerful people in history. And their greed drove them to do it anyways. To take that risk. If it kills us all, it's not going to matter because we're all going to be dead. If it doesn't, we're going to be the most powerful people in history for generations. So it's worth it. So they did it. And then, of course, all those people who were making those decisions went hundreds of miles away just in case it blew up a bunch of people but didn't detonate the entire universe. If it blew up half the planet, they were away from it and protected themselves. And they did that every single time there was a detonation, but they put humans out there. Let's put them out there close by at different distances and see what happens to them. And that's what they did. Guinea pigs. They just stuck people out there. That's what they think of you individually. They don't care about you. Otherwise, they wouldn't have just took the army troops. Go out there and sit down and watch it. Take your shirts off, too. We want to see you watch this. And they had them lined up at a half a mile, a quarter of a mile, half a mile, 2 miles, 5 miles. And they had them sitting there, and they detonated this and to watch what would happen to humans. So all of them were going to die, and they knew it and ordered them to go out there. Go out there and watch it. You get front seat, man. It's going to be cool. They did that to kill them, to see how long they would live. That is the resolve and thinking of evil-minded people when it comes to you, the individual out there on the planet. Know that. Know that. All evil people think like that and act like that. Let's continue.
I was thinking specifically if an entity was in Hiroshima or Nagasaki at that time and he was reaching Hive stability at the end of our cycle, would this death by nuclear bomb possibly create such trauma that he would not be able to be harvestable at the end of the cycle? That was specifically my question. Ra, I am Ra. This is incorrect. Once the healing has taken place, the harvest may go forth unimpeded.
Well, and Rick says, he said, I understand I was picked on through my entire school years and then bashed by my stepfathers. You're going to find that, first of all, that kind of stuff happens anyways because bullies are bullies. But you're going to find, Rick, that when you tell the stories to other people and you talk to other people, you're going to find that happened to you more than likely than it did to other people. Not because the evil people will go, well, that's because you're a wussy, Rick. You're a pussy. That's why you will let them beat you up because you're weak. Because that's their mindset and they believe that. but that's not the truth. The truth is, it's just like having wanderers have more autoimmune problems than anyone else. It's because your vibration is of a different stature than everyone else's, and your body doesn't understand why you're not in it and why you get picked on more and beat up by evil people. And you'll notice it wasn't good people that were doing this to you. It was evil people. They target people that they consider weak, and everyone who they consider weak is someone who is not evil like them. And so therefore, because you're not evil like them, they are coming after you and abusing you and beating you up and torturing you and making you their victim, because you are not them, because you're a spiritual being. And that is what they do to spiritual beings to get you to stop doing that. They're trying to beat you into submission, just like yelling at you because you say something and calling you all kinds of racist names these days to cancel you. They're trying to stifle you and shut you up and get you to become them. Right? So you have survived that. You know that. And he says, okay, he's saying I dealt with it. No, I'm not saying that you didn't and you're not willing to now. What I'm saying is I was only telling you that to show if you talk to other people, I was picked on too. I was picked on and beat up until my father said, we're going to stop that. We're going to teach you how to fight. And my father started teaching me hand-to-hand combat. Okay. And then it stopped. And my brother is the same. And then by the time we were 18 years of age, we were beat up and put in garbage cans and had stuff thrown on us and picked on our whole lives. Not a joke. Same way. And by the time we were 17, 18 years old, we had learned so much about hand-to-hand combat. And we had been in martial arts since we were like 8. So for like 10 years, we literally tracked these guys down. By the time we were 18 years old, we tracked down every guy who beat us up when we were kids. We found them wherever they were in the world. And we went and found them and kicked their ass one at a time. Not a joke. My brother and I still laugh about it. We went and beat those guys up. Hi, remember me? I'm that kid that you beat up. Hey, look, bro, I'm sorry. We were just kids. Yeah, we were. And you thought it was funny. And I'm here to kick your ass to remind you how unfunny that was. Just in case you didn't learn that lesson through your life and you didn't have karma fix you, you're going to take a beating now because this is who I am now. And here's the thing. When my brother and I were little, we were runty little kids who were shorter than everybody else and skinnier than everybody else. And then we went through this growing spurt. By the time we were 18, I was 6'1" and my brother was 6'3", and he's now 6'5". All those kids stopped growing at 5'7" and 5'9". Some of them were 5'10", but none of them got to 6 foot or above. And all of a sudden we come towering over them, and we're in martial arts for 10 years, and they're scared, they're peeing themselves and scared to death and begging us not to beat them up. The same thing that they did to us when we were 7 and 6 and 5. But what we did that, you can call it wrong and say you guys shouldn't have done that because they were just kids and kids are kids. But you know what? What if they didn't learn that and they were still doing that and they were still being that? We had no idea. And so anybody who doesn't want to get beat up, they're going to tell you, I've changed, dude. Look, I'm not the same. I'm so sorry. We were kids and I've changed, because they're only saying that now because they don't want to get their ass kicked. So you can't tell unless you actually, we'd have to stalk them for a while and find out what kind of person they are. Right. And then we started doing that. Like I literally did that in public, where somebody would be beating up his girlfriend and I'd walk over and beat him up. Right. I was that guy that would do that. Some guy that one time was doing that. And he slapped his girlfriend, and I walked up and I grabbed him and I slapped him across the face, backhand him across the face. Literally, you see them do that in movies. I looked at him and said, hurts, doesn't it? And he was like, who the hell you are? You got no business. And I'd slap him again. I was that guy. I did that. I was the champion of the people. That's my name means that. My last name is O'Neill. That means son of champion. It's an Irish name. I'm champion of the people. My name is a title. Leonard Edward O'Neill, Lionheart, Guardian, Protector, Champion of the People. That's what my name means. I didn't know that at the time, but I was already doing it. And then I find out when I learn what my name means, I'm like, well, of course I was going to do that. I'm already doing that. I was doing that my whole life, defending people. That was the way I was. I didn't like it. Right. I was always going around when big kids were beating up on little kids, and I'd go over and even though the kid would be bigger than me, and I'd say, pick on somebody your own size, just like you see in the movies, and he'd be like, well, you're smaller than me. Yeah, but I'm not him. And I know how to fight. So pick on me. And then I would beat him up. I got in trouble in school all the time for doing that. And I would be telling the counselors and the principals, they're like, you're fighting again. Why are you fighting? Because that guy was beating up. There were 3 of them, and they were beating up on this kid and throwing him in a locker, and they were putting garbage on him. So I kicked their butts. That's not right. You shouldn't be doing that. So, an eye for an eye, that's crap. Two wrongs don't make a right. I'm like, yeah, it does. You guys just don't want people to do that. Two wrongs do make a right sometimes. You should turn the other cheek. But when you have people abusing other people, sometimes you got to fend off the wolves, right? It's unfortunate, but that's why people go, "Oh, you mean to turn the other cheek like Jesus said? I got to let somebody kick my ass." No, that's not what he meant. He meant don't do to them what they're doing to other people, but they sometimes need to be stopped and taught a lesson. So you don't need to be, completely teaching them a lesson and going, now I'm going to beat you to a pulp and break your arms and bones, and you go too far. But some people need to intervene and stop people from doing things because nobody does that. Nobody stops them. They don't have a father figure, or their father figure is that way, and that's what they've learned, and nobody stops them. And everyone's afraid of bullies. Bullies usually are scared, and that's why they do it. Okay, let's continue.
However, the entire planet will undergo healing for this action, no distinction being made betwixt victim and aggressor, this due to damage done to the planet.
Right. See, so Rick, you did it too. And here you go. There's another example. Rick said, even in strange towns, I saw a fight, and I would, even as adults, and not thinking I would jump in and split it up. See, so you did the same thing. So there's a similarity here again. That's what my point was. When you and I now I'm starting to share stories, and now you're sharing stories back, and you're like, wait a minute, how much are you and I alike? Right. And now you're realizing how much you and I have been alike. We've never met. You're in Australia. I'm in California. We grew up completely different, yet our instincts were to do the same things. You would jump in and stop people from fighting. There was a time when I was at a restaurant, same thing. There was three guys beating this guy up in the parking lot, broad daylight, and everybody was looking out and nobody was doing anything. And I looked at my brother. I said, come on, let's go. And our wives were like, what are you doing? You are not going out there to get involved. And I said, I am. Are you with me? And my brother went, okay. He was kind of reluctant. He was scared, but he went, okay, let's go. And I ran out there, and I yelled, hey, stop that. What are you doing? Get the hell out of there. And the guys were like, leave us alone. Get out of here. You're going to get some of this. And they were beating this guy up. And I went over and I said, you are going to freaking stop. And the guys turned on me. And as soon as that happened, my brother jumped in, and the two of us started fighting these three guys. And meanwhile, people were yelling, call the police, call the police. And we're fighting these guys, and we subdued them. And they were like, this guy did this to my sister. And I'm like, that doesn't mean that three of you can kill him over it. Doesn't mean three of you can beat him unconscious and start kicking him, and you're killing him. That is not how it works. Does he deserve something like that? Probably, but it's not yours to do. And now you're getting your ass kicked because you thought you were doing right, but you were gone too far and you were hurting this person. And we got in so much trouble with our wives afterwards. What if they had a gun? And I was like, what if the Russians invaded? What if they had a nuke and he blew us all up? I'm like, you could speculate all day long. They were going to kill that guy. They were in a rage, and they were beating this guy, and he was down on the ground, and they were kicking him now. It was done. It was over when they hit him after 4 or 5 times, and none of you people, and I started yelling at the crowd, and none of you people were doing anything to stop that from happening. And I know it's no one's business. We don't know whether that guy really did that or not. We don't know that. But when 3 men are beating on 1 man every time, someone needs to stop them. And that's why we have judges and lawyers and cops and the law. And I said, and any of you that wants to have a problem with that, step forward now. I'm in the mood. I was fighting those guys. And everyone started laughing. Some of them cheered, and some of them just looked at me like I was crazy. And of course, my wife yelled at me, and my brother Jeff's wife yelled at him, and we were in trouble all day because we helped save a man's life who was getting beat to a pulp by men because he wronged some guy's history. He probably did. We don't know. I never figured it out. They all got arrested. Cops came in and talked to us, thought about arresting us, decided not to. Everybody else defended us and said they broke it up, and those guys started scrapping with them, and they stopped when those guys were no longer beating on the other guy. And so then they just took down our names, and nothing ever happened. So, Rick, that shows, right? What was I saying? You'll find that we have similarities in our lives, and you literally are just describing that very thing. All right, let's continue. But these things arise, getting back on point with it, these things arise in our lives to give us the possibility to learn from them. And then the similarities happen in lives so that when we talk about these things, you and I can come to a common ground quickly and go, wow, look at how similar what happened to us in our lives. Isn't that weird? No, it's not weird. It was done on purpose because one, if you're a soul who's in service to others, you're going to have all the same things happen to you by the people who are in service to self, and they're going to abuse you in the same ways. And they're going to target you in the same ways because you are not them. And therefore, you're the target they're looking for to gain power, because they can't do it to each other because they're going to run up against themselves, but somebody who's better than themselves. So they go after easy targets. And who is that? That's us. That's the people who are in service to others. So we all end up having similar experiences, but they become more and more similar experiences when you get to know each other. And this is how things work. When we talk to each other, we start going, I had that happen too. And there was a time. Next thing you know, we've talked for 2-3 hours telling stories. And then we go, wow, isn't that weird that we're so similar? And now we've gotten to know each other better, and we're more trusting of each other. And then we realize we're on the same side. That's how it works, right? So I wasn't trying to say, bro, that you hadn't dealt with that, and it may have come across that way. And I apologize if that's the way it came across. But I was trying to show, look, dude, you're having the same things, and that's when you started saying that. I was like, look how similar your life has been to mine. Why? We were forced to be that because, one, we were picked on by all the evil people, but two, because of who you are in your soul and what you represent. You couldn't stop yourself because you were in service to everyone. You're in service to others, so you couldn't stop yourself. You had to intervene. You had to help because that is what your soul has chosen as a path. So you will always do that instinctively in your entire life unless you choose to be evil.
26.29 Questioner, could you please make the instrument cough? And Ra, cough. 26.30 Questioner, and then, can you describe the mechanism of the planetary healing? Ra, I am Ra. Healing is a process of acceptance, forgiveness, and, if possible, restitution. The restitution not being available in time/space, there are many among your peoples now attempting restitution while in the physical. 26.31 Questioner, how do these people attempt this restitution in the physical? Ra, I am Ra. These attempt feelings of love towards the planetary sphere and comfort and healing of the scars and the imbalances of these actions. 26.32 Questioner, then as the UFO phenomena was made obvious to many of the population, many groups of people reported contact, many groups of people reported telepathic communication with UFO entities, and many recorded the results of what they considered telepathic communication. Was the Confederation, shall we say, oriented to impressing telepathic communication on groups that became interested in UFOs? Ra, I am Ra. This is correct, although some of our members have removed themselves from the time/space using thought form projections into your space/time, and have chosen, from time to time, with permission of the Council, to appear in your skies without landing. 26.33 Questioner, then are all of the landings that have occurred except for the landing when Eisenhower was contacted, are all of those landings of the Orion group or similar type groups? Ra, I am Ra. Except for isolated instances of those of, shall we say, no affiliation, this is correct. 26.34 Questioner, is it necessary in each case for the entity who is contacted in one of these landings to be calling the Orion group, or do some of these entities come in contact with the Orion group even though they are not calling that group? Ra, I am Ra. You must plumb the depths of fourth density negative understanding. This is difficult for you. Once having reached third density space/time continuum through your so-called windows, these crusaders may plunder as they will, the results completely a function of the polarity of the, shall we say, witness/subject or victim. This is due to the sincere belief of fourth density negative that to love self is to love all. Each other self which is thus either taught or enslaved thus has a teacher which teaches love of self.
See, now that, I think maybe we'll stop here. I think I'm going to stop here on purpose and then back up to the beginning of that, because that right there that we're about to get into is now talking about fourth dimensional, fourth density, not third dimensional, fourth density and third dimensional, but fourth dimensional thinking of people who have graduated from the third dimension to the next dimension on the evil side, and how they justify and how they realize how they've gotten past the yin and the yang that's here and the dance that's here, and they realize that even people who are evil serve the all. And they realize that, and they justify it, they're aware of it, and they're actually teaching people. So I want to get into that, but I don't want to start now because that could take me another hour or two to explain. So I'm going to hold off on Raw right here, and we're going to start up right here at the 6-minute mark next week and get into that, because I want to unpack some of that, because it goes into what I was talking about. And I'll get to that. And so I'll deal with it on a third degree level or a third dimensional level. And then I won't unpack it so much. but it gets into literally what I was talking about in the understanding, like today, where I posted something, video that Peter Coyle had sent me about Donald Trump talking about them trying to make a fighter planes electric and tanks electric, and how idiotic that is, that they would want to do that when those tanks are their job, and those planes their job are to blow things up and destroy things, and how that leaves a huge carbon footprint on the planet. And yet we want to send in a tank that it has a smaller carbon footprint to kill a bunch of people and blow up buildings, or send in an aircraft that does the same. And how idiotic that is. Instead of saying we need to try and do away with warfare, they're like, we still want to wage war, but we want to have tanks that are electric instead of gas, because we want them to have a smaller carbon footprint when they go in and blow up massive buildings and make craters and blow things up with nuclear weapons and murder and kill a bunch of human beings. But we want them to have a smaller impact on the environment. Right. And so he's like, that is insane. So I had put that video in one of the chats, and I said, this just kind of shows how crazy the progressives are. And immediately I got a response from somebody in the chat I was under the impression this is a spiritual group and not a political group. And I was like, well, you do realize that politics is the religion of evil, and that they're aware of that. You're not. And that's what goes all the way back to the beginning of the show, when I said the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was getting us to think that he didn't exist, and how untrue that has to be, because we know the devil exists because we were just talking about him, and saying that was the greatest trick he ever pulled. Well, if everyone knows that was not the greatest trick the devil ever pulled, because everybody knows that. Okay. So the truth is that, right? And Anna said, yes, it is, Leo. Yes, it is. But here's the thing. The greatest trick the devil ever proved was making you think that there should be separation in church and state, because what they call state is in fact the church, but you don't know that. So the greatest trick they ever pulled was getting you to think that Satanism, the fake religion that is just Christianity opposite, it's Judaism upside down, Christianity upside down, and paganism and Wiccanism upside down. That's all that is. Whatever they stand for, we're the opposite. And their creed is do what thou wilt, where the creed of all the Vikings is do what thou wilt, but harm none. So they just dropped off the harm none and said do what thou wilt. So there's nothing about that religion that is original. The Satanist religion only can happen because those other religions were there, and they're like, whatever they stand for, we're for the opposite. So they went after the big three religions at the time, and handpicked all the things they liked about them that would help them be evil. And they claim that's the religion of the devil. And they're worshiping the devil, Satan, Lucifer. And they tried to marry those two and say they're the same thing. The Luciferians will tell you that Lucifer's not the devil. They, in fact, say that Lucifer and their religion is a holy religion where they're actually doing good for the earth, because they actually are teaching each other that even in them being evil, they're serving the all in a positive way, because they actually understand the yin and yang and how necessary it is and what's going on a higher level, on a fourth dimensional and five dimensional, not fourth density, five density level. But in fourth and fifth density, they also know it there. They've come to terms with what they are doing, and they're like, we're just as necessary as they are. You don't know about that because they don't let you know about that. That's the greatest trick the devil ever pulled, not to get you to believe that the devil didn't exist, but to get you to not know the truth about reality and how it works. Hence why I'm writing my book, or wrote it, and it's in the publisher's possession, being edited as we speak. The reality about reality, returning to the old ways. Because I'm literally showing you in there was a time on this planet when everyone in all religions and all prophets, and every prophet you've ever heard of, what they were actually trying to teach you. It's still there for you to know. But most of how they're being addressed by these corporations who call themselves the religion, the Roman Catholic Church, the Christian Church, the Mormon Church, the Muslim Church, the Jewish Church, the Hebrew Church, the Church of Jesus Christ and Latter-day Saints, the Church of Taoism, the Church of Buddhism. Those are corporations now, and they're no different than Walmart, Target, and all the other corporations you can think of, Budweiser, Anheuser-Busch, all those people, Coors Brewing Company, Philip Morris, they're no different. They're selling you a product. And they're using the message that was being taught by these ascended masters as a product to sell you. And they were doing it when Jesus was alive, and that's why he went and kicked over all the tables and was yelling and throwing a fit. And if you read that, and the same people from the Hebrew religion will tell you Jesus never existed and it was all fake, their religion is just as corrupt. All those religions are corrupt. Now, 90%, actually 86% of all the people, clergy in all of those religions are not corrupt. And the religion in and of itself has been corrupted at the top level in the message that they're capable of giving to you. But those people are still trying to teach you the proper way. So don't think that I'm saying all religions are bad and that they're all fake and they're all wrong. They're not. They're all good, they're all right, and they're all wrong at the same time, because the message has been perverted from its original form into something that is more corporate-minded, selling you a product. Religion recruits you. Spirituality waits for you to find it. Okay? Spirituality is individual, and you will make your way and find your way in your path, or you will not. And then you will only be living in the flesh. You will only be living in 3D, and you will not ascend. You don't have to have any religion in your life whatsoever, and you can still learn everything that I know without following a religion. You can. Or you can go to church every day of your life and you can then learn everything that I learned. But you can also go to church every day of your life and not learn a damn thing. It is all going to be determined by you and what you want to learn and whether or not you buy into them saying, your Savior is going to come get you. Just wait. Wait here. Your Savior will show up. They convinced the Jews of that about 4,000 years ago, and they're still waiting. But anyone who shows up and people say, even in their own religion, I think this is the one that was cut. No, it's not. No, can't be. Not. That's not. I know. No, Jesus is not. Moses, maybe. He gave us the Bible. Muhammad, no, not. Can't be. Okay. So think about that. Why would they say that? Why would they constantly tell you in our Bible, it says that there's going to be someone who's going to come and tell you the right way. And all the people who have come since then to tell you the right way, they claim are not telling you the right way. Yet those people sacrifice their lives to make a difference in this world. One of which Mahatma Gandhi said, be the change that you want to be and you want to see in the world. And they changed the entire face of the earth. All of those people. Oh, they got lucky. It's because somebody propped them up. Now the thinking is, again, I'm a corporation. Someone realized that and started selling that product. So they believe that Jesus is a product and never has been anything but a product. And then look, they've conquered the 2.5 billion people that follow that. It was a great scheme. The people who are saying that to you are thinking that because they're judging them by what they're doing. Again, that's the same thing as saying that equity is better than equality. And why? And the reasoning they're trying to sell you equity over equality only works if you are like-minded and you are evil like them and you can't do the right thing. So saying that Jesus Christ is nobody and Moses is nobody, or definitely Muhammad and Jesus are nobodies, and they were just invented to sell a product, the only people who think that are the people who are selling a product. Otherwise, they would never accuse you of that. Do you see? That's the thinking that you need to see. Julie, I love that. That's funny. My sister just came over today. Julie said, Leo, I can't see the beard and how it's doing or how it isn't going or how is it going. That's hilarious, Julie. I know you can't see because I don't have the camera on. My camera right now is not working. Tomorrow I'll have a separate camera plugged in. The camera on my computer got stuck apparently in Zoom, and it doesn't even work on Zoom anymore. So I can't turn it on. That's why I don't do it on here. So tomorrow, if you tune in, you'll see my beard. I actually do. I have been growing it now. I started in late August growing it. So I am growing a full beard. My sister came over today and she goes, I like where your beard is right now. You have it all trimmed perfectly. I'm like, I haven't even done anything to it. I haven't shaved it. I haven't trimmed it. I haven't done anything. I said, literally, I just combed it. But the last time you saw me, it was scruffy looking because it hadn't filled in yet. Because she hadn't seen me in like a month, and I just started growing my beard. I said, so I'm not quite sure if I'm going to let it grow for the rest of the season. Julie, you remember, right? Every year I grow a Santa Claus beard. I'm probably going to let it grow. Right now I haven't shaved it, and I don't plan on trimming it. I'm just going to let it grow, and we'll see how it goes. And if I don't like it, I can always trim it. So, but I've looked at pictures of myself when I had the long beard, and I went, some people think I'm an old man looking, or, I've had people tell me when I had my long beard that some people said, oh, you look like Gandalf. And then others are like, you look like a homeless guy, and so it's a matter of perspective. Once again, the truths we cling to directly related to our certain point of view. However, Julie, to answer your question, you can see me tomorrow. If you show up on the show that will be broadcast on Oneness Project Light, Jacqueline Taylor's podcast, which I will be on there, you'll be able to see because I'll have a camera on. You'll be able to see my beard tomorrow. I don't have the camera sitting here. I would turn it on because the camera on my laptop isn't currently. It's stuck somewhere that I can't find. But it is doing well. And so you can see it tomorrow if you want to tune in. So I am growing the beard, and right now, every morning I wake up, I'm like, I'm going to shave my beard, and then after I wake up, I go, nope, I'm going to let it grow. So at this point, I haven't decided to cut it off, and it is, how I am, every year, I let it grow to get the Santa Claus beard. So there's a good possibility that I'm going to do just that. So it's doing well. But if you want to see it, tune in tomorrow, and you can see the beard. So you have to realize that they're aware of this, guys, going back on point. Evil people, even currently here, they're aware of the dynamic of how this matrix works, and they teach each other the actual dynamic of how this place works. They don't let you know about it. You don't get to learn your side of how this dynamic of this a whole entire yin and yang works here. Okay, that's the greatest trick the devil ever pulled, was to take that knowledge away from you. And that's what these empire builders that you call the Anunnaki are doing. And that statue is not, they have the pineal gland, the pine cone, and that's supposed to be the pineal gland, and they're giving you information. And that's what that's telling you, is they're enlightening you and illuminating you. That's an actual lie. That is them grabbing a hold of your third eye and closing it, and stifling your and telling you what you should believe. That is what they're saying with that. And that little handbag they have are the plans, and the scrolls in the waistband is the knowledge. The plans of this is how you control the population and create a population and gain control over it and live as aristocrats and quiet them down, shut them up, keep them asleep. And the scrolls are the knowledge of why you're doing that and what you're doing to set up the system so that 1% of the population owns 99% of all wealth, and all money gets filtered up to them. That is what that statue is saying out loud to the planet, to all of them. They all know it. You don't. Okay? So that's the truth of that, right? And Cassie says, what is this? You guys are talking about facial hair, right? Cassie said, I heard it's the new trend for women to grow out facial hair. Thank goodness I've never gone with the trends. Yeah, you know what? I mean, why not? Why wouldn't that come into being, where people are going to the natural? They're looking for the natural, Cassie. So letting their facial hair grow, their armpit hair, their body hair. I'm okay with that. I'll be honest with you. I think hair is sexy on women too. So I don't care about I think it's sexy if a woman doesn't shave anywhere and just lets it all grow and it's all natural. I find that more sexy than all that trimming. But I'm also of the belief that all of nature is the same way. So no plastic surgery, none of that stuff. Whatever you have is what you have, and I'm okay with that. So women are like, oh no, I got to wear a push-up bra because my boobs are starting to sag, or I got to get implants to make my boobs bigger, or more upright, and I got to get surgery done on my face because now that's all ego, right? Ego does that to where you're trying to improve yourself. right? On the other side of things, if there's some things that are just really have been bothering you in your life and you want to stifle and you want to fix things about your body, that's what your motivation is. That's completely different because your motivation wasn't, well, I had my eyelid was droopy on one eye and I looked, hideous. And so I wanted to fix that one eyelid. So I went in and had some surgery done. I get that. Some women get a breast reduction because they're like way too big, or they've been abused because of those, and that bothers them, and so they want to fix it. So I get those kind of things, right? Same thing. There was a woman, China was her name, or her wrestling name. I forget her name in real life. It was Joni something. In real life, she was a wrestler for the WWE, and she was like 6'4" and full of muscles, and she got a lot of surgery on her face done. And a lot of people were unaware of that. And they were like, well, why did she do all this surgery? Because she's a beautiful woman. But if you saw a picture of what she looked like prior to the surgery, she was not very attractive. And that bothered her in life. So she had her nose fixed because she had this big bulbous nose. So she had some of the bone taken off so that her nose didn't have this big crook in it. And her cheekbones were too big and her jawbone was too big because she was very Germanic and she looked like the comedian who used to have the Tonight Show. I can't think of his name right now, but he's got that big square jaw, Jay Leno. She had a big square jaw like Jay Leno. And imagine that on a woman who was, 6'5", and so she had some of her jaw shaved down, and I get that. And if you don't tell somebody and say I was marrying her and think she's beautiful, and then we have children, and all of a sudden my kid comes out with this high forehead and this big square jaw and this nose, and I go, what the hell? Who was the husband? And then you find out, oh, that was what I looked like. And I had, some work done. Then you might be annoyed that you weren't told that. So I get that, but she did that because she was going into a profession where she was a freak in her mind. So she wanted to fix those things. So she did. She ended up in Playboy. She was very popular, but she still was never happy because of that. And she had psychological problems in life because of all of that and the scars that she had, and then the scars she had from having the surgery and knowing the only reason I'm popular now is because I changed who I was. And so she had to come to terms with that, which she did in life. But so there's ramifications on both sides. But I believe in nature and natural. All right. So I remember when I was a kid, I was all about the hard body. And I remember a friend of my stepfather's in a family, he said, you young guys, you're looking at hard bodies. That's all you see. You're very superficial. When you get older, you're going to realize that that's not the hard body that you are looking for. It's the soul inside the body. And I was like 16, 17 at the time. And I was like, yeah, but that's really hot, man. Those chicks are hot. It wasn't very much longer after that. If you saw my wives, it wasn't very much longer. By the time I was in my 20s, I was the same way, that I don't see what other people see. I'm more like Don Quixote. People used to call me Don Quixote. Don Quixote, for those of you who have the American accent or English accent. Don Quixote is actually how his name is said. And definitely if you're a Native American or a Hispanic, you say it that way. If you're Latin, you say his name the way the Latinos did. Don Quixote was a Spanish person. But his whole whether he was real or not, I'm not sure. I've never really looked into that. Some people say he was. Some say he was just a metaphor. However, they thought he was crazy because he looked at windmills and saw them as giants, and he has to go to battle with the windmill. That wasn't what all that was about, by the way, but it kind of was. It was your reality is what you see it. And that doesn't necessarily mean that reality isn't that way in some ways. And so there's a lot to be learned from Don Quixote. But Don Quixote saw people for who they were, not for what they looked like on the outside. And that was the whole idea of that, is to never judge a book by its cover, because people who are vain, look at Hollywood in America and actors around the world, actresses and actors around the world, they every single one until they're 95 years old wants you to think they're 35 or 25 still. They all dye their hair. They all go and have plastic surgery done, because in their profession, if they start looking old, they don't get parts. Nobody wants to hire them. I remember in retail, it was the same. A buddy of mine in retail dyed his hair all the time. And I said, bro, why do you dye your hair? And he said, because nobody wants to hire an old man. The only way you get a job when you start getting gray hair is you have to start dyeing your hair, or you're done unless you are made. in this industry, and that is the way it is. That's part of our society, unfortunately. Look at the presidents and heads of state around the world. When they're in office, they all look like they're 35, and then when they get out of office, every one of them ages 35 years in a week and a half. Why? Because they stopped dyeing their hair and putting on all the makeup. Makeup, it's a catch-22. Makeup for you women, the more you wear makeup, the more you're going to look older, or the quicker you're going to look older and have lines in your face. If you smoke cigarettes, it's the same thing happens. If you drink alcohol, the same thing happens. If you don't take care of your body properly, your body will respond in kind. So wearing all that makeup to make you look beautiful, which is what everybody thinks, they spend 6 hours on having all this makeup put on their face so they can go on camera for 15 minutes to an hour, and then they wash off all the makeup, or they wear it out and get new makeup to wear out to town at night and take pictures at a movie and all this stuff. They wear that makeup so much that it literally ages them far beyond their years. So by the time they're in their 40s, their face looks like they're in their 70s. And that's it. So what the problem is, it's a catch-22. When you use the makeup, you have to continue using the makeup. And that was the story that they were trying to show you in King Arthur, or the Sword and the Stone, with his sister, who used her magic once she usurped it from the Merlin, used that magic to stay young because she wanted to be virile and in charge. And the only way that people would be afraid of her was that she never aged and she had all this power. The same thing happened in The Huntsman, those movies. You saw that same thing happen with Charlize Theron playing that part. She was using her abilities and power to stay appearing to be young. And the moment that she lost her power, she immediately aged and became very old. And then, of course, in the Arthurian legend, her own son, when he saw her as an old woman, he literally took he was wearing armor at the time, plate mail. He literally punched her so hard, he killed her. He punched her and killed her because he knew that she had lost her power, that Merlin had taken the power away from her of the dragon. And that she was no longer of any use to him. And so he didn't fear her anymore. And he saw that she was weak, and he murdered his own mother. And why was that? Because now she appeared to be weak. Do you see? And the same thing happened in the Chronicles of Riddick, when Riddick was fighting against the unholy undead, whatever his name was, who was in charge of the necromongers. And the second that he got stabbed by Riddick, immediately the evil people who were trying to usurp the throne, the woman, I can't remember her name that played the part, she yelled, "Quickly stab the beast while it's injured!" And what's his name? I can see his face. The Australian actor, I can't think of his name right now. He was playing the part of the character that was trying to take over. He tried to murder the king because you keep what you kill. So whoever killed the king became the king. And before he could do that and kill him, literally Riddick killed him, and then he took over and became the king, and he wasn't evil. So that was the end of their reign, and he used them for good. No, it wasn't Hugh Jackman. It was... oh God, he was also in Lord of the Rings. He was in Lord of the Rings, and he was one of the horsemen from the horse people that was riding out in the wilderness, and then ended up showing up with Gandalf to save the day. He played Leonard McCoy in the Star Trek movies, the new Star Trek movies. And I can see his face, and for some reason I'm drawing a blank on his name right now, and I can't think of his name. I'll get it in a second, or one of you will pop it into my head. I can't think of his name. Darn it. And it's driving me crazy. But he played that part in Chronicles of Riddick, and he was in those movies. And a lot of people don't know who he is. And he's actually a great actor. He played Leonard McCoy. He played DeForest Kelly, playing Leonard McCoy very well when he played Leonard McCoy in those movies. It was insane how well he played that part. For those of us who were fans, really enjoyed and I can't think of his name. He was also in a movie, a Viking movie too, and I can't think of it right now. I'm going to look it up. Okay, so give me a second here, and I'm going to look up that movie, right, and get the cast here, and tell you what his name is. And it's right on the tip of my head, and I can't think of his darn name. Right on the tip of my brain, and when I go spiritual, it's hard for me to stay in the physical and actually do that, and so I have to choose one or the other, and sometimes it becomes a a pain in the butt for me to do. And of course, they're bringing up all the other characters except for him, and I can't see his name. No, it wasn't Hemsworth. He's too young. Why did this come up this way? Sorry, that whatever. It's because I have it on images. My bad. All right, here we go. So let me find it here. Give me a second. I'm scrolling down. Carl Urban, for crying out loud. I can't remember. He would kill me. Carl Urban, great actor. If you don't know who he is, you should pay attention. He's been in most of the epic series. Carl Urban, Julie, you did it just as I said it. You threw it up on the screen, didn't you? Carl Urban, for crying out loud. Great man, great actor. He was in Doom too. Most of the movies that have been out in the last 25 years, he was also in Red 2. Most of the movies that have been out in the last 25 years that were series movies, 2 and 3 movies, he was in the movies. He may not have gotten the starring role. He was either the antagonist or one of the people that was a co-star or the star in every epic movie series that has been around, except for Pirates of the Caribbean, in the last 20 years. And most people don't know who Carl Urban is, and I'm like, I don't understand why. He's a great actor, and he starred in his own movies, and his characters have always been pivotal characters and strong characters. He even played in Judge Dredd. He played Judge Dredd. First, you had Stallone play it. The next guy was Carl Urban, who played Judge Dredd. He hasn't played Batman yet. Watch, he'll do it. Carl Urban is a great actor. So you guys should watch movies that he's been in. You'll see what I'm talking about. But he played that character in Chronicles of Riddick, and eventually Riddick turned over the necromongers to Carl Urban's character. But he actually went after him and tried to kill him. Tried to kill him off even afterwards because he wanted to be in control. So he was trying to murder him as well. But eventually Riddick, and I don't know if they made that in the movies, eventually Riddick relinquished the throne to him and said, take it. I never wanted it. But he just wanted to keep it from being evil. And that he would just told him that, know that if you turn into that guy, I'm going to come and kill you. If you ever read the stories, you know what I'm talking about. But his characters and everything was really good. He's a great actor, physically, mentally, staturally. He does his homework. He's a natural actor, getting back on point of nature. So to get back onto that, literally, if never heard of him, yeah, he's Aussie, right? I believe he's Australian. Look him up. I'll have to look him up. I believe he is Australian in real life. He's a great actor, and I believe he's from Australia. I could be wrong. It could be English, but I think he's Australian. Now you're going to have me look, Rick. Was that Rick that said that? Yeah, Rick said that. So I'm hold on, and I'm going to look him up now. Where is he here? I got to find him again and click on him here, and I'm going to look him up and find out if he is, in fact. That's weird. He was just here. Here he is. He's New Zealand. Sorry, he's not Australian. He's a New Zealander. I apologize for that. I don't want to offend anybody. He's from New Zealand. I apologize. Don't be mad at me because I somehow equated New Zealand with Australia. I apologize for that. Even though you guys are like local, right? He's a Kiwi. I apologize to you Australians. I don't want to offend. That's like saying somebody is Italian when they're actually Sicilian. I know, or the other way around, right? You guys are like, he's freaking. What? Wait a minute. He's a New Zealander. He's not Australian. Get out of here with that. I apologize if I've offended anybody. I know how that is, right? That's like people from the South and people from the North here in America, right? I'm not a Yankee. I'm from the South, right? It happens, right? So I apologize if I offended any of you. So he's from New Zealand, but he's a great actor, and you should check out his movies. Honestly, and I get annoyed when people do that with me, and I talk about that where I'm a Celt, so I'm a Western European Southern Viking, and a buddy of mine who was literally Russell, who's like 6'11", was also red-haired and freckled, just like me, and but he was a Geet, so he was from Denmark, Finland, Norway. And that's where his blood's from. And I'm more Scandinavian, which is a little bit further south, Spain and Germany down to the Celts. And I was literally standing with him, and people looked at he and I and said, "Are you guys brothers?" And I was like, we look at people who don't know, we look the same. So they're like, well, you guys related only by DNA, not by blood or by marriage or actually relatives. He's Northern Viking, I'm Southern Viking. Another time I didn't know this guy, and he was a Swede, and he had the blood red hair, not I have or now I don't anymore, but I used to have the orange. You guys would call that, what do you guys call that over there in the UK? You guys call that ginger. I had the ginger hair, which was the orange carrot top. They used to call me carrot top because my hair was orange like that. My beard was the same if you look at my old pictures. But I do have some of the dark hair because of the Viking. I do have some of the dark blood red, but it was mostly about halfway in between that orange red. My hair on the top of my head used to be orange red, and the hair in my beard had a little bit more of that blood tinge to it because it had the black mixed in with it because of my DNA being Scandinavian and European descent. Like 85% of my DNA comes from Western and Southwestern Europe. And literally, I've done my DNA test. So I was in line with this guy, and I turned and I looked at him. I said, look at that blood red beard. And he looks at me and he smiles. He says, I know, look at yours, right? And I said, you're original, right? I said, your original recipe. And he looked at me, smiled. He goes, I know, right? I said, I'm light. And right then the people around us were looking at us, and the woman says, are you guys related? And I said, no, I've never met this man in my life. I was just standing in line, happened to turn around and saw him. And she's like, oh, well, you guys kind of look the same. And I said, not to us, we don't. I said, to you guys, maybe we look the same. If you're not European by descent, you don't know the nuances of the European races. I said, do you see how red his beard is, how dark red, deep blood red that is? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, that's Odin's beard. That's what they call Odin's beard. Odin's beard was red like that. And Odin would dip his blood his beard in the heart blood, which is the darkest blood in the human body. He would drip his beard and drench his beard and dye it with that blood red from the heart of the king that he would kill. And so the Viking thing would be, may Odin's beard forever be red, because that means will he always be in combat and conquer his enemies and be virile. I said, look at my beard. I said, mine, just how orange it is. And they're like, yeah. I'm like, his people conquered my people at some point thousands of years ago. We integrated, and my people were integrated with the people that lived further south. And they were like, really? And I'm like, yeah, no, it's true. The reason that my hair is more with a blonde look to it, what we call the blonde look, is because of that. But as a clan goes in the Celtic pantheon, I'm an O'Neill, which is part of the MacNeil-O'Neill clan, and we're an outlaw clan because I'm a Black Irish clan. So according to the Irish, Scottish, English, Celts, and Welsh, I'm considered the N-word in that pantheon because of having that northern blood that comes from the darker Vikings with the darker blood. And my family traditionally are a Black Irish clan, what's called a Black Irish clan. And the Black Irish clans are the people who have the very fair skin with the blue or green eyes and the dark hair, right? In fact, if you know the Gods of Ireland, the story, you know that the original Nail of the Nine, Nail means champion. Champion and his bloodline always had a split. They were a Black Irish clan. So they would have one child that was born with the orange red hair and one child that was born with black hair in the same families. And that was exactly what, to this day, I'm the throwback red-haired child in the family. And my brother is halfway in between myself and the dark. And all of our sisters, except for one, is darker. So like the firstborn, Carolyn, she's Black Irish. So she has freckles, blue eyes, and black hair. And then Jennifer was halfway in between the two. And Julie was very dark and she looks Hispanic. And then Debbie, the one that's just directly older than me, also dark and looks Hispanic. And then myself, I was the throwback with the red hair in this generation. And then my younger brother was halfway in between. So we always had a dark one, a light one, and someone in between. And that's all of us. I have 4 older sisters and 1 younger brother in this generation. My father was the dark one. His brother had the red hair like his grandfather. And his older brother, the firstborn, my father was the middle brother. He was the one that was halfway in between. And that's the way it goes all the way back for over 1,000 years, our family, and apparently all the way back to Champion. That's what they called him, which translated into Nahale, which translated into Nail, which translated into Neil. So Nail of the Nines that you guys know about, if you're Irish, is my great. I don't know how many greats that is, all the way back to High Brazil, because he went to High Brazil. He had 2 children when he was on High Brazil, and one was raven-haired and one was red-haired. And that's where I'm O'Neill, son of, bloodline of Nail of the Nine. Yeah, right? So he says, Peter says, O'Neill's comes from the clan, the burnt Dibron warriors of the land, which is the dark, which is Black Irish. That means the burnt, or Dibron, means the Black Irish. So yeah, we're the Black Irish clan. We come from that clan of people that were considered more Crusaders, more Gauls than Gaels, but we were Gaels as well because we were further north. We have Scandinavian DNA that mixed with all the people. So when the Vikings came down, raiding and turned and lived with people, because the Vikings were all the way down. The word Celt that we get literally comes from the word Keltoi, which is a Greek word that means those people who live up north who are not Greek. So you can look that up. So we call them the Celts. Those are people that are all of the indigenous people that live in the South, and they were actually Vikings. And a lot of people don't know that. You Europeans know it, especially the Irish and the Welsh and the Scottish, the English, even the English. If you're listening out there, you know it as well. If you know your history, you know you're a Celt. You know you're a Viking. Your queen and your king now can trace their lineage back to Beowulf and Thor. Okay, so you guys are Geats. So you know what I'm talking about. You're Scandinavian, just like me. Right? So you know what I'm talking about. If you're English and you are anywhere near the royal throne and you know that you're a full-blood Woad, you know that you're a Viking. And if you're Irish, Welsh, or Scottish, you guys already know it anyway, because that's what they teach. You guys teach that to your children in that country. The rest of the world just doesn't know it until you are told that. But those of us who are from there know that. I was taught that my entire life. I wasn't born there. I was born in the United States. But my bloodline is from there, and I was brought up European. I wasn't brought up American at all. Europeans love me. English, you guys love me because I watched all the same programs. Peter and I get along because he and I watched all the same shows when we were kids, because he's only 2 years younger than me, 3 years younger than me. No, 2 years. You're 54, right? He's 2 years younger than me. And we grew up watching the same shows. He grew up in Ireland. I grew up on the west coast of America, but we watched all the same shows. Why? I was brought up European. So I watched all those shows on BBC that nobody in America knew about until recently. I grew up watching Doctor Who and watching all those shows. I know I'm way off topic here, but I'm reminiscing right now, just killing a little bit of time. Yeah, so if you're European, you know what I'm talking about. I was brought up that way. But I wasn't brought up English European, even though we watched all the same programming. I was brought up very Celtic European. Benny Hill, yeah, I love that. Watch Benny Hill, love that show. Loved what's his name, Richard Allen, his comedy. Loved he always ended the show with unless I'm saying his first name wrong, Peter, correct me if I'm wrong, it's Richard Allen, and he always said, "May your God go with you." When he ended his show, he sat on stage in a bar stool and he drank a glass of whiskey and smoked a cigarette the entire time he was on stage. It was hilarious, and he was missing the middle finger off of one of his hands, and I remember that because my Aunt Dorothy was missing the middle finger off of one of her hands, and she smoked a cigarette the same way he did. So literally, I remember as a kid when he said that affected me. 52, you're 4 years younger than me. I knew you were younger than me, but I couldn't remember if it was 2 or 4 years younger than me. So you're actually 4 years younger than me. So literally, I remember he would say, "Good night, and may your God go with you." And I remember looking at my dad and saying, "What does he mean?" And then my father was like, "Well, son, we've talked about that. There are many different religions out there and spiritual practices out there in the world. He's aware of that, and he's not taking any one spiritual practice, and he's not taking on that persona. So he's telling people that he's letting people know he's spiritual, but he's not trying to force any religion on anyone. And so he's saying, 'Good night, and may your God go with you.'" And he explained to me that what was going on in Ireland at the time was the fight between the Catholics and the Protestants. and you couldn't appear to be Catholic because that would piss off the Protestants, but you couldn't appear to be Protestant because that would piss off the Catholics. So he was taking a more neutral standpoint so that no one would get mad at him. And he was that way. He was very neutral that way. And so when I was a boy watching that, my father explained that to me and why. And I had already had some training into that anyways about all the religions. I told you about that. My father said for me, learn all of these things as you're growing up and learn all these religions. Don't just go after one, learn about everything that you can. So people were to me also, do you have a doctorate in theology? And I'm like, I actually know more about theology than most people who have a doctorate in theology, because I've literally been practicing learning about religion, philosophy, and mythology since I was less than 8 years old. And that is literally what I have done in my off time, and I still do it. My brother's doing it now. He's actually going to get a bachelor's degree in theology, and he's actually going to a college to learn that. And he's starting to realize how much you learn. And we've been, the more he learns, the more he and I are actually having better spiritual conversations. But I'm still teaching him because he's doing it from a Christian school. So he's learning the Christian. They always teach you from their slant first, and you have to then step out of that lane. Otherwise, you just become a Christian theologian. And I have learned early on not to be that way. And so when I say something and I'll reference someone will say, "Oh, it's obvious that you're a Christian," and I'm like, "No, it's obvious that you have ego and that you don't realize it, but you're stuck in that rut of looking for your enemy." Because I'm going to piss off everyone. It doesn't matter what you say. You're going to piss off someone because it's designed into the system. They have the system set up so that you get mad at everything. That's the more they can get you to get mad at and you're triggered by everything, the more you're so worried about fighting everybody about everything. You don't have any idea what's actually happening. That's the truth. That's part of the knowledge that they partake in or actually imbue and imbibe into each other that you don't get to know about. And that's why you're going to see a lot of pushback about my book when it hits the market, especially if it starts getting popular. You're going to see people trying to discredit me like crazy and call me nuts and say I'm making things up and lying to the people and trying to lead you to the devil and trying to if you follow me, you're going to go to hell. Because I'm attacking the establishment on all sides. I'm doing that in my book, and literally it's going to tick off the Roman Catholic Church, and they'll probably excommunicate me. It's going to tick off most religions, but most spiritual people, even within those religions, are going to be like, yeah, well, so you're going to hear if I do it right, if my book hits the world the way I want it to, there's going to be huge debate because of my book. So if it gets ignored, it's only because it's not gotten popular. You watch. You'll see what I'm talking about. If it goes the way I want it to go, and this is why I say that about haters are going to hate, and that if they hate you, they're talking about you. If they love you, they're talking about you. If they ignore you, nobody's talking about you. It's the only way they can truly make you go away. But they can only do that so long, because if you keep poking out to the world and talking to the world, eventually they realize you're actually making a difference. And once they do, they realize that, then they have to come after you. So you'll see when the book hits. At first, they'll try to ignore it, and then eventually, and maybe immediately, I'm hoping that immediately it causes a stir on this earth. And I hope that religions come after me, and I hope politicians come after me, and I hope everybody comes after me. I'll take it, but they'll try to ruin my life. But I'll take it because they're not going to be able to. And you'll see, you're going to have people say, that guy's an idiot, he's crazy. And who knows, if it works right, you're going to see me on some networks talking and other networks banned. And you're going to see my book banned around the world in different places. And then that's going to cause people to ask questions. So I'm not afraid of that. I know going into this, that is what's going to happen. What I do now does the same thing. It's just right now I'm not big enough to be as big as Joe Rogan. If I get to be as big as Joe Rogan, you're going to hear people trying to get me canceled off of every platform. That's the truth of it. Why? Because they want to shut you up. They don't want Joe Rogan talking about what he talks about to the world, because he's not toting their line. He's actually talking about real things and trying to figure them out for the world in real life. And because of that, his podcast, look what they just did to, what's his name over there in England? Same thing. The second he started getting to the point where he had almost 7 million followers on one platform, and they couldn't shut him up. then they immediately try to deplatform him. That's what happens. They want to get you off of the things they control. That's why they control those things, so they can control the narrative. It's nothing new. They've done it forever. They've done it in every genre. You guys just don't remember it. That's all. And then they've taken that knowledge away from you by erasing history, so you don't know that what their grandparents and great-grandparents and great-great-grandparents have done to stifle information on this planet. If you actually looked into that, you would see it's the same families are controlling the same things for the same reasons that they've been doing that throughout time. Some of us know about that. Some of us are aware of that. Most of you don't have any idea what I'm talking about right now. All right, you guys, I love you guys. Tune in tomorrow, 12 noon, West Coast America time. That is 3 p.m. East Coast America time. GMT -7, UK -8, 8 p.m. in the UK. Tune in. We will be on Jacqueline Taylor's podcast on Oneness Project Light on YouTube and on Facebook. And I will share this out and have people share this out onto all the places that you find this podcast. And if you're listening on the MP3 file, rest assured I will have it posted everywhere where you listen to my podcast. It'll be up sometime either tomorrow or on Sunday when I download the recording and get the MP3 file. I'll put it up and it will be labeled on my podcast as Oneness Project Light. Oneness Project Light, and it'll have the date in our discussion. And tune in for this roundtable of people. It is our coalition that is producing this, that's putting it on, a coalition that some of you are aware of and some of you haven't learned who we are yet, that is putting this out. So tune in tomorrow and listen to this conversation, because you're going to hear not just my ugly mug talking, you're going to hear other people that are going to be talking. And Peter, I'll talk to you in a little while. Hopefully you can tune in. It'll be 8 p.m. your time, Saturday, tomorrow. Hopefully you can tune in and come in and talk, be on the show and talk. So it'll be on Zoom. I'll talk to you, and maybe I'll have Jacqueline call you and see if we can get that set up. If you want to try it to see if you can get on to Zoom, we'll have you do it early too to make sure you're on, brother. But we'll talk and we'll get that. Hopefully you can make it and do that. Peter GV from South Africa is going to be there. Cassie, who's in here, is going to be here. I don't know who else that's going to be talking for certain, but it's going to definitely be Peter and Cassie and Jacqueline and myself. So there'll be 5 of us minimum. And I hear tell there's a few people that are going to come in and out that are going to talk. I don't know who all. Anna, I would love to have you in there talking if you want to come on. But, I know you haven't done that and stuff. I've had a couple of friends that don't normally speak, and they're like, oh, I don't know about that. They're kind of scared and don't want to get on the air. That's okay. It's not required. But if not, try to tune in and be in the audience so that you can be there to ask questions and make comments and that kind of stuff, guys. It's going to be a great conversation. I have no idea how long we're going to be live. I'm not producing it, so I don't have any plans. I'm a guest just like you guys are. I'm just a co-producer helping put it together, but I'm not the one producing. It's not my show, but I am behind it and helping, right? And if something goes wrong, I will be producing it on my show to make sure that it goes on the air and gets recorded. So either way, we'll be live. So tune in, guys. It's going to be a cool conversation, and you're going to hear other people say things instead of just me. You're going to hear other people talking about the same things, and you get to see some of the similarities and differences in all of us and what we do and how we learn and what the ramifications and what's out there and what we're trying to bring to you guys. All right, guys, I love you guys. Hopefully I see you guys tomorrow on Jacqueline Taylor's podcast. If not, I'll see you next week when I come back and do the Law of One. Those of you listening around the world, I know who you are on the MP3 broadcast. I pay attention. I know that you guys in Germany are blowing me up. I even know that there's a couple of you in Russia. Even though most of my shit's banned in Russia, there's a few of you in Russia that are listening to my podcast. And I know that there's a bunch of you guys in Africa as well. I know that you guys are around the world in more than 70 countries. I haven't counted them lately, but I was up to 74, 75 last time I counted countries on the planet that are tuning into my show. I know who you guys are. I know that I just don't call it out as much as I used to. I'm going to get back to start giving you guys shout outs, because I know some of you are hitting my show a lot, trying to see if I'm paying attention. And I see that my numbers are like 30 or 40 times in a day or something. So I am aware of that. I'm going to start looking into that, and I'll call you guys out by country and by city if I can get that information. A lot of times I can. So I know that a lot of you guys in Stockholm are listening to me. A lot of you guys around the world in places over in Australia in the West, which I didn't have a big, it was always in the East. But some of you guys in the West are actually out there in the Tules listening to me. I love you guys. And New Zealand. You guys, I know about all you guys in the Kiwis and all the islands around Australia. You guys actually tune in. I love you guys. Thank you for doing it. I don't give you guys enough credit and say hi to you enough. India, I have a big following there. I love you guys. And I'm glad that you guys tune in. Egypt, I know you guys are listening. All around South Africa, you guys too. I know you guys were out there. Madagascar, weird. I never thought Madagascar. Everybody, I'm on all states in the United States, with the exception of one state, and I haven't figured out why. I'm not going to mention you guys by name, but you guys know who you are. There's one state in the union that no one has listened to my podcast yet on any channel that I'm aware of. So I'm going to call you guys out, start calling you guys out there, and try to tell somebody who knows somebody in those states. It's like a little teeny. It's not Rhode Island. I'll have to look on the map. It's one of the little teeny states in the east, northeast. Hold on, and I'll tell you what it is here. I'm going to look it up real quick just to call you guys out because none of you are listening. So hopefully somebody who knows somebody in one of those states will say, "Hey, tune into his damn show," just so we'll shut up about it. Because every state in this country of the United States has listened to my show, with the exception of somebody in Vermont. Okay, so if you guys know somebody in Vermont, tell them to tune into my show just so that I can say that the entire United States of America has tuned into my show because somebody in it, and it's not like one person. Canada was only one person here and there, and I want to thank you guys up there because it was either all the way over in Vancouver or it was all the way in the east, but not some of the little teeny places in the east. And now every province in Canada has listened to my show, so I love you guys. That took about 5 years before everybody was touched in Canada, and there's only about 40 million of you in the entire state. Entire country, but 42 million. But there was a couple of your provinces there in the center, Alberta and over, that nobody ever listened to me. Well, now you're listening to me, so I love you guys. But Vermont, what's going on in Vermont where they won't listen to Orion Rising in Vermont? No one in the state of Vermont. So if you know somebody in the state of Vermont, call him and tell him, listen to his podcast just once so he'll shut up about it, because all of the rest of the states of the United States have tuned in to his show and are tuning in regularly to my show en masse. Hundreds of people in Vermont, never in 7 years. All right, guys, I love you guys. Have a great night. I will see you guys either tomorrow or I will see you guys next week back here on Orion Rising. This has been Orion Rising. I am your host, Leonard O'Neill. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good morrow, depending on where in the world you are tuning into this show.